like to talk. You want to talk? You're listening to Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday, the official podcast of Black Fawn Distribution, broadcasting live across the planet and retransmitted on all major streaming platforms. Tonight's program is brought to you in part by Wellington Brewery's Helles Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, Twisted Teas, and of course Canada's #1 genre film company, Black Fawn Distribution. You wanted the best. Well, they didn't make it, so here's what you get.
It's really not that bad.
You are going to hell. Here's your host, Benner from Black Fawn Distro.
Okay, and welcome back to another edition of Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday. I'm your host, Benner, of course, and again, of course, joining me, we announced this in the last program, but my co-host, Kelly McNeely. Kelly, you came back for a second run.
I made it.
It's impressive, amazing. How you doing? What's new?
I am doing great. I'm very excited. I was so happy to revisit this franchise recently. I'm very stoked about a number of things, so I'm doing great. How are you, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well, actually. And for our audience there, thanks for tuning in. Of course, this is a Takeover Tuesday Hotstove from Hell edition of the podcast, which is where we assemble a panel of guests and we talk about a famous film franchise that has some sort of tie-in with something new coming out. We did these a couple of years ago, a couple of these last year, and they were really, really, really popular. People wanted us to do more. So of course, we've got a couple of awesome, amazing guests with us tonight who love this franchise just as much as we do. And we figured, hey, why not get them on and we'll talk about the Evil Dead. So of course, Evil Dead Rise, the fifth installment, the fourth sequel, or the second sequel in the new remake timeline, which we'll talk about a little bit later, of course, is dropping later this month in April. And I've heard nothing but good things, of course. And one of us, we have myself, we have two other guests with us, Jake and Lindsay. One of us has actually seen the new movie. So we'll try and we're not going to tell you who it was, but we're going to try and maybe get some details and see if we can get some info out of them, or if it's me, Spoiler free, of course. Spoiler free. If you haven't seen the original Evil Dead trilogy or the remake from 2013, we're just going to assume that you have. But in case you haven't, spoiler. What do? We need like an alarm or something, like a spoiler warning if you're thinking about going, hey, I haven't watched the 1981 original classic, and I really do want to keep that as a surprise. Maybe tune out right now, but if you're not, we really, really do appreciate you tuning in. Of course, our sponsors, big shout out to them. Deadly Grounds Coffee, of course, who are also running a bit of a promotion with Evil Dead Rise. So make sure you check them out on Instagram at Deadly Grounds, and you'll be able to kind of check that out. They're doing I think they're doing a ticket giveaway or an exclusive screening coming up as well before the premiere of the film, before that hits theaters. The premiere, of course, was at South by Southwest, I think a couple of weeks ago. Some time ago, I guess. But of course, Deadly Grounds Coffee, they make our brand of coffee as well.
It's amazing.
Appetite for caffeination, sweet toffee o' mine. If you need an extra kick in the morning, it's rocket fuel. I'm actually not drinking it out of my cup today, and I'll tell you why in a second. But also the other reason is that I can't drink more than 2 cups of coffee a day of this stuff because it's not good for you. Of course, I'm wearing my blue shirt as an homage to, of course, Ash, one of the greatest heroes in cinematic history. And of course, we are also sponsored by Wellington Brewery's Helles Lager, Helles Yeah. And of course, Twisted Teas as well, which, I don't have an Army of Darkness t-shirt, but it's one of my favorite like artworks. One of my favorite posters of all time, I think, is Army of Darkness right here. So I don't know, Twisted Teas, take note. There's a market out there of at least one, maybe 2, right, Kel?
I would buy one. I would buy 2 just so they could be a market of 3.
Of course, we're broadcasting live to Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, and of course, rebroadcasting on all the major streaming platforms for podcasts, including Apple and Spotify. Please, if you can, leave a comment, leave us a review, spread the word, help share the link, and let people know that they can check us out on a variety of platforms. And of course, yes, tonight we do have some audience members tuning in from YouTube and as well as Twitch. Oh, and Twitter. So listen, if you want to be part of the conversation, please leave a comment down in the comment section below, which is where those things belong. And what we'll do is we'll try and get to them throughout the broadcast and make you part of the conversation as well. So listen, Kelly, one of the reasons I begged and pleaded that you become the co-host is to kind of keep me in check, make sure I don't talk too much. How am I doing? Do we need to get to a trailer yet or what?
Yeah, let's hit a trailer, man. Let's wrap it.
Okay, perfect. So listen, after the break, we're going to come back with our panel of guests, of course, to talk about Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and of course, Evil Dead 2013. And at least one of us will be talking about Evil Dead Rise. Listen, before we get there, let's take a look at the trailer that started it all for this franchise back in 1981. Essentially, it's 41 and a half years ago, which is kind of crazy. But here it is, the Sam Raimi's immortal classic, The Evil Dead.
No, it was the woods themselves. They're alive, Ashley.
I fear that the only way to stop those possessed by the spirits of the book is through the act of bodily dismemberment.
I don't care what happens to her. She's your girlfriend. You take care of her.
You know, one of the things that I love about trailers from the 80s is that they basically show you the entire movie. So if you haven't seen Evil Dead, I feel like now you kind of have.
You have
And we can
now. Yeah,
continue.
absolutely. Listen, I love that trailer too. When he
Yeah.
when he says, he's like, what does he say? He goes, I don't need to deal with this. She's your
She's your
girlfriend. And
girlfriend,
he
yeah.
cuts to the scene where he's got the chainsaw. Pretty funny. Oh, the 80s. Anyway, listen, let's introduce our guests. Kels, you want to go first? Who you got?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have the very lovely Lindsay Traves, who is a Critics' Choice and Rotten Tomato approved film critic and genre journalist. She's written for such spooktacular sites as Bloody or Disgusting, Slash Film, Pajibub, Anatomy of a Scream, Fangoria, Daily Dead, and more. She's also made appearances on the Pod and the Pendulum, Horror Queers podcast, Certified Forgotten, and Kingcast. She is a very busy and very impressive and all-around wonderful, delightful, spectacular human being. She's also a to the grave fan of The Evil Dead, so I'm very excited to introduce Lindsay Traves. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us today.
Lindsay, how's it going?
Hi, so well. I love being introed because it's kind of like, oh yeah, I did do that. That's so cool. Good for me. Like you never really, I don't know. I'm not someone who like hypes myself. So when you hear that, it's like, oh, that's nice.
It's like I did those things.
I was going to make a joke about like cutting you from the podcast, but after that intro, I was just like, that joke's not even going to land. So yeah. Anyway, welcome to the program. We're so pumped to have you. Thanks for doing this. Looking really forward to talking all things Evil Dead. Of course, I wanted to introduce my guest. So of course, he is a man, a myth, a legend. He is one of the godfathers of Shockstock, which is the one of the best counterculture events that you can go to in Ontario, probably even Canada, and maybe even the world. I'm talking about Shockstock. This guy is he's a good friend. He's been a big supporter of us at Black Fawn Distro for a number of years, and I think I've gone to most of the Shockstocks, but in addition to that, though, he's done a lot of work with London Film down in London, Ontario, and he's really crafted a whole community down there of filmmakers and actors and actresses and people working together, which is kind of what this guy is all about. I'm, of course, talking about Jake Grimb. Jake, welcome to the program. This is your first time on Takeover Tuesday.
I know.
Thanks for joining.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. What if you're doing the extended intro and you wanted to add an Evil Dead Timbit, you could say that during COVID, we were the guys who organized the Ontario Evil Dead drive-in tour.
I was going to save that for later to talk about that later, but yes, absolutely.
I mean, I need to have an Evil Dead connection.
Well, listen, you're one of the godfathers of Shockstock. I mean, of course, you're
I'm not on here to promote Shockstock.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Everybody has a cool banner. I'm like feeling very jealous.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
We didn't come up with one.
Can you add the Evil Dead? I'm also Evil Dead drive-in feature.
Yeah. But if I had tickets on sale, I totally would, but it's not gonna happen.
Let's throw everyone up on the screen here, just so we're not it's not so weird with the big heads and stuff. Of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, thanks so much for tuning in. Mm-hmm. But of course, you don't see our heads or our beautiful faces on our podcast. But if you are listening and you do want to see what we look like, you can always check us out on YouTube. So let's get to Evil Dead, guys. I mean, we're all fans. We've been fans for years. Jake, let's just start with that because, one, I also want you to add it to your banner underneath your name, just so you have something else to promote there. But I mean, during the pandemic, right, which we're all sick of talking about, and, et cetera, but you guys did run an event at the Hamilton Drive-In where you played Evil Dead to an awesome crowd. Bunch of people showed up for it. How did that come to be? And have you always loved the original classic, do you think? Or how did you come up with that idea?
I mean, it's yes. I mean, the original for me is the top one. I mean, I love the whole franchise. I love Evil Dead. But the original holds a dear place in my heart. And yeah, during pandemic, we went back to our roots. Before Shockstock, I was part of, a team called Vagrancy Films. And what we did was old rep theater bookings of classic 35 millimeter stuff. And, we would source rare film prints and play them in, Toronto and London and area all over Ontario and even down into the States. And so we made a lot of good connections with some of these theatrical distributors, Grindhouse Releasing being one of them. And when everything stopped, it was an opportunity to connect with them and say, hey guys, let's get back to doing some exhibition stuff. Obviously, the landscape had changed, everything had gone digital, but that actually made things a little bit easier in the way of distribution. And so we put together a double bill. I think we played 4 or 5 cities and toured it, and it was a huge success because there was nothing else going on. People were safe in their vehicles, and I think at the time, that was the first time I had seen you in well over a year. Everybody had been locked in, and we got to come back out and kind of feel like we were starting to get back to real life, and the Evil Dead was a huge part of that for me, and I think for a lot of people that were able to attend.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And it was awesome just seeing it at a drive-in too with the old people were rolling up in their old cars. I think one of the guys showed up with the same model as the one from Evil Dead 1, which was amazing. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So listen, before we get to, I want to run down everyone's ranking, but I've got a couple quick things to go over right now. One is that we do have a special drink on tonight's program, which you can make at home if you'd like. Of course, please drink responsibly, but this is the Dead by Dawn, put together by our mixologist, which is over here to my left. Kells McNells, of course, my co-host as well. Kells, what can you tell us about this amazing drink?
Well,
How do
as
you, how do you
anyone
make
that
it?
is, how do you make it? Well, if anyone that has watched me stumble around the internet has made probably some connection to the fact that I really enjoy making signature cocktails for completely random reasons. Just, it's fun sometimes. So for this one, the Dead by Dawn contains a dangerous dollop of tequila because I always forget to measure and it ends up coming back to haunt me. Some ginger ale to help soothe the demons, a splash of orange juice to erase the sun, and a splatter of grenadine for some bloody balance. So I'm going to see if I can.
There
There's
we
so
go.
much glare.
Yeah.
There we go. It ends up kind of having this little sunset effect, which I feel is appropriate given Evil Dead.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So listen, make that at home if you can, and check
Mhm.
it out. There is, of course, I have my Wellington SPA here. Sorry, my Wellington SPA, because Shop Smart, Shop SPA. And did you guys, Lindsay, Jake, you got the instructions to make this, I think, right?
I feel like Jake actually made it. So I really had to improvise, but I think I did an okay job. The biggest change I had to make was I did not have grenadine, but I bought a blood orange. And so I used blood orange juice, which I think is should be
That's
like a pretty
beautiful.
acceptable
Okay, that's
substitute,
pretty
I think.
good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The
So-
grenadine was in my liquor cabinet, so I went, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I was like, I can get I didn't get it, but I was like, ooh, I could secure a blood orange in a day. So I did that.
You fared better than I did because I did not. I thought I had orange juice. I didn't have orange juice, so I ended up using one of my kids' juice boxes. So I've got ginger ale, tequila, peach cocktail, and a blob of raspberry jelly.
Perfect.
Extra chunky.
Served in a skull, so I mean that's got to amount for something.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jake. This is the number one scumbag that is operating Shock Stock. Of course, he's got a dollop of something in his Dead by Dawn drink, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Okay, well, listen, I want to run down the ranks of how we rank these films because I think that's always a great place to start.
Yes.
But also, I've got a very special guest. We've got a special guest, last minute addition to the panel. He's only going to be able to stay for a little while, but that's okay. I said, listen, I want you on for a few minutes. I'd rather have you on for a few minutes than none at all. And I'm, of course, I'm talking about. This is the director, one of the producers, and one of the creators of the documentary Hail to the Deadites. I'm talking, of course, about Steve Villeneuve. How are you, my friend? Welcome to the program.
I'm pretty good, but I don't have any drinks with me right now.
This was a last minute addition. I was like, why don't you come on the show, man, and shoot the shit? And you were like, yeah, okay. Sure. That's okay. That's okay if you don't have the drink. That's all right. You can make it afterwards when you're sitting by your fireplace, right?
I'll make enough for the 5 of us. There we go.
Oh, that's good. Perfect. Will you bring some at Shock Stock?
Absolutely. I'll bring a whole bar.
Sure. Are you guys coming down to Shock Stock this year?
Of course we are.
In the I don't know what it's called now, the bus of doom or whatever you guys have.
We don't have any bus, but we're gonna be 3 different cars. I think we're
all tied together.
People. Yeah. So
the caravan of carnage.
Yep.
There we go.
I was gonna say caravan of chaos, but the carnage is better. Well, Steve, drive safe though, guys.
Always.
Steve, we didn't give you a kind of a proper intro tonight, but just if you can, just give us the Cole's notes on how Hail to the Deadites came to be and how you kind of put that project together.
Oh my God, it started in 2011, I think. I was doing another documentary, which was the sequel of my first documentary, Under the Scares. And at some point, we had the opportunity to start doing interviews with people from Evil Dead, and we decided to shift, our focus to this documentary about the fans of the Evil Dead, because we all love Evil Dead, and it was just like, let's do this. Like, let's meet up with Tom Sullivan and the cast and crew of, mostly the cast of Evil Dead 1 and 2, and it took like 7 years. And every time that we were like, oh, we need to finish this because the TV show is coming, and no, took more time. And at some point, it was done. So that's how we do it.
Amazing. Well, thanks I know you can't stay for the whole program, but we really do appreciate you jumping on for the few minutes that you can. And of course, I wanted you on for this particular part of the program just because we're doing our rankings. So, Jake, you had Evil Dead number 1 as your number 1 pick, right? Lindsay, over to you. Do you have a favorite in the series? And we're really counting like the original trilogy, and you can include the remake if you want. And I know one of us has actually seen Evil Dead Rise, but we won't tell people that till later, so we won't include that in the rankings. But your thoughts?
Oh my god, I'm sweating because I like notoriously dislike rankings because I'm like, what's the metric? The best, your favorite, the one you watch the most. So
all those things have to come into play. Yeah, they all have to go into.
But they all could be different. Like the best one isn't necessarily the one I like the most. I don't know. I'm very stressed about rankings in general. It is a thing that I struggle with immensely. I can say I watched two. Oh wait, am I giving you my whole? What's the situation?
What's your number? Let's say what's your favorite then? Let's go with our favorites, right? Because that's.
I watched two the most.
Yeah.
Okay.
I watched two the most, but my favorite scene is in Army of Darkness.
Okay.
Which scene?
Yeah.
I love the s-mart scene. That's like my favorite. And like all of Evil Dead, top to bottom, the s-mart scene is my favorite scene.
Yeah, mine as well.
Fantastic. Absolutely.
So great. It's so great.
It's the best.
It's the best. So yeah.
Kels, what about yourself?
Am I ranking or am I favoriting?
Well, it's a favorite. It's a ranking of.
It's favorites. A ranking of favorites.
I didn't mean to ruin rankings for everyone.
So I just assumed because Kelly is she's like the queen of all lists. I just figured
Golly, gee willikers. In terms of ranking my favorites, this might be controversial, but I'm going to rank in terms of like ones that kind of like mean the most to me. I'm going to start with Army of Darkness because you never forget your first. Evil Dead 2. Oh God, it's so hard because I love the 2013 one so much. And I also really love the original. This is hard.
It's impossible.
Can I tie for third? Is that an option?
No, there's no ties.
There's no third? Okay. Then you know what? This is going to be controversial. I'll say Evil Dead 2013 and then Evil Dead 1981.
Oh my goodness.
That's my controversial opinion.
Jake, what do you got rounding out the four?
I would say it goes right in order. 1, 2, 3 remake for me. Like I think, and a lot of people will, I don't know, maybe even Steve discussed it in this documentary, but I think it really depends which one your favorite is depending on what order you saw them. Like when you experienced it first affects you, and the way that, you know what I mean, the series kind of, depending on how you look at it, it either evolved or de-evolved from being serious horror to more of, action oriented and kind of, more lighthearted in tone. And I think it's when you first jumped into the series and that's what you experienced is your moment in Evil Dead history.
Yeah.
Okay. Steve, is that something you agree with? Like, what's your take on it?
I totally agree. I saw Army of Darkness first, and then I saw Evil Dead 2, and then I saw Evil Dead 1. The thing is that here in Quebec, like I first time I saw the movie, they were in French. So Army of Darkness is Army of Darkness, like translated. Evil Dead 2, they did call it Evil Dead 2 French version. But the first one, like the Evil Dead, the title was L'Opéra de la Terreur, which is like nothing with Evil Dead related. So at the end of the day, when I saw Army of Darkness, after I watched Evil Dead 2, I was like, I kind of saw that character, in another movie. And then years after, I don't know, I was at the video club and I saw L'Opéra de la Terreur. I was like, I saw that movie, but I don't get it. What the fuck is happening? And back in the day, there were no internet and everything. So I have to say that if you're asking me which one you want to watch tonight, I'm always gonna say Army of Darkness.
Okay, so that's my favorite too, and I think everyone kind of touched on this too. Is like that's the one I saw first, because I remember we said this at the top of the show, but this artwork I remember seeing that in the theater.
Amazing.
And I think I think Raimi made this after Darkman. I think
93. Yes, Darkman is 1991. I think.
Yeah. So I always remember Darkman big posters up in the movie theater, and I love Darkman. And when I was a kid, and then like Army of Darkness came out, so they were saying like, from the director of Army of Darkness. And so from the director of Darkman, Army of Darkness. So I always remember the artwork, the poster and that sort of thing. So I saw that movie first, and it's like really hilarious. Like I loved it the first time I saw it. And then I went back and watched, as a kid, I didn't even know it was Evil Dead 3. Right. And then I went back and watched Evil Dead 1 and 2. And like we laughed about it because we were like Evil Dead 1. Like I didn't understand at the time like why Evil Dead 2 was the exact same movie as Evil Dead 1 pretty much. And then so that's how I'd rank them. I would say probably Army of Darkness, Evil Dead 2, Evil Dead 1, and then probably the remake. And not slagging the remake at all. I really think it's a good film for sure. I hadn't actually watched it till recently, just because it was just one of those movies I just never got around to watching. Because I was concerned too that it wouldn't have, like, it didn't have Ash in it, and it didn't have, like, it was kind of made around that 2010, like it was 2013, right? So there was that kind of decade where they sort of remade everything.
And not everything was done well.
Right. With varying results. So I was always kind of nervous. Everyone was like, "Oh no, you'll love it. You'll love it. You'll love it." And, but up until recently I hadn't watched it, but it's still really, really good for sure. But yeah, for me, Army of Darkness, I think is like, it's got the best one-liners. Lindsay, I share that sentiment with you where, the s-mart, shop s-mart scene is the greatest.
The greatest scene.
However, there is a part of me that really likes the, that has a love for the alternate ending as well, where he sleeps too long, which I always thought was like
also good,
the best ending. But
I actually saw them all in order.
The pit scene is amazing. Oh, sorry. The pit scene is amazing. You know, when he's like the first time he's getting back his chance and everything, it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
That and when he jumps up and he puts his stump into and it clicks, like
exactly.
Like I felt like that was the time, like, but it's, I mean, let's talk about that too a little bit. Like, just the idea, like, cause recently when I rewatched the movies for this podcast, and this episode, I had a sense of what I remembered about the original movie. But I didn't really realize, like, until I really rewatched it, that it is made like a horror film. Like, it is supposed to be a horror film. And then of course they remade it for Evil Dead 2. And I guess the story behind that is that Raimi had gone off and made this movie called Crime Wave, which I've actually never seen, but it bombed, like, critically and monetarily it bombed. So he got convinced to remake Evil Dead as Evil Dead 2. And originally he wanted to make Evil Dead 2 as, like, Army of Darkness was supposed to be Evil Dead 2 because he didn't want to remake the first movie. And then he got suckered into doing it and they got more money and that sort of thing. So that's how they made Evil Dead 2, I guess, or how he got convinced to do it. So it's pretty interesting. And then that's why the ending of Evil Dead 2 is like that, to leave the door open for Army of Darkness, which obviously eventually got made. But I wonder if, like, when I watched the remake, I really kind of, like, got a sense that they were really trying to make a horror flick, and they got away from that campiness. Like, but I don't know. I mean, what's everyone's take on that? Do you like the campiness of the series, or do you like the more of the horror aspects of the series?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that works so well about 2013, and that also works so well about the rest of the franchise, is I feel like if they wanted to try and do that same campy energy, I feel like you kind of can't do that in 2013 without Bruce Campbell. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like Bruce Campbell carries so much of that comedic element and so much of that character that if they try to do it, I know that originally when they first kind of announced that they were doing a remake of it in 2003, they floated the idea of, like, Marlon Wayans and Ashton Kutcher being the new Ash, which, sit on that for a second, but I'm really glad they didn't do that.
Inspired casting.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that they decided to go really kind of hard and dirty and mean with it. That's one of the reasons why I love it, is because it makes me physically uncomfortable. Like, it scares me, that movie, and I love that because I feel like there's so few horror movies that kind of, like, when I watch it, I'm like anxious about it. Yeah,
2013 is scary. Like, it's a proper scary movie, but. So I rewatched the first one last night, which I watch very seldomly because it was just not my, I don't know. It was just the one, when I first watched them all, I watched them all in order. I watched the first one. I was like, okay. And then I watched the second one. I was like, oh, I get it. And it made me love the first one. But I don't rewatch it that often. And rewatching it last night and having seen 2013 a million times, I was like, oh, this actually follows a lot of the same beats.
Yeah.
Like, you don't really notice it because I don't think I don't want to say, like, we don't all remember the first one so well, but it follows so many of the same beats, like, even up to, like, the burial in front of the cabin and what comes after. And I think that's, like, really magical. I think 2013 is a miracle. Like, I really think that movie is impossible, and that it exists is impossible to me. Like, every time I watch it, I'm like, oh my gosh, they made a beat by beat remake that's way scarier it is still very clearly an Evil Dead movie, but it is also completely its own thing, and also it's scary, and also it's the style of the time. Like, I don't know, it's that movie's impossible. I don't know how they did it.
It also flips the script too, because you build up the whole movie like expecting Ash to be the brother character, and then right at the end they're like, haha, no. And I really love that kind of flip to it as well. And it like you said, it kind of goes back to the original like Evil Dead, that energy of having it wanting to be very serious and scary and heavy. I think that's wonderful.
And it feels so different, but it's still brother, sister, girlfriend. Like they did it. How did they do that? I don't know.
Great third act in that movie, I must say.
Definitely.
Because they kind of do a bit of a ring ending, right?
Yeah.
Which I always love. I mean, The Ring did it the best, but still, great third act. And I was like, the whole Jeep tipping and everything like that is pretty awesome in that scene. Jake, how about yourself? How do you feel about the remake? Do you have some love for that one, or?
We actually did a special early screening of it in London, and some people like passed out in the theater and barfed, and like it was a pretty like crazy screening in the fan experience and the fan reaction. And I think to go on what Lindsay was saying, how it kind of beat by beat like mirrors almost exactly to the original, but the theatrical experience of seeing that film with people for the first time, and I wasn't obviously I wasn't there for the original, but I imagine there was a lot of similarities in that sense too. And you know, again, it was that energy, that Evil Dead energy that exists within the universe is carried over to the audience, and during the screening of the remake, it was still there, and people were onboarding for the first time. And you know, there might be a younger generation that sees that film as their number one film because it was, you know, that theatrical experience made them into horror fans. It created their love for the Evil Dead franchise.
Yeah, for sure. Steve, like I know you love everything Evil Dead. So, but what was your feeling like seeing the remake? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're probably kind of nervous when that was coming out as far as what they were going to do. But how'd you feel after seeing it for the first time?
I was super excited, and I saw it in Montreal during a Fangoria screening. So, like, the room was full. At some point, one of my friend had to leave the theater because it was too hot, and he felt nauseous and everything. But on my right, there was a super old guy, maybe like 75, and every time there was some gore, he was like, and I was like, is he gonna like die right now? So my experience was amazing, but I love the remake. I think when people are just bashing on it, I think it's just because they just want to be the cool person who say no, we don't love remake and stuff like that. I think it's a really good film. And one of the things I was afraid, you know, when you're watching any Evil Dead movie, like you can feel how Sam Raimi is there, you know, that the way that he's directing movie and stuff like that. I was afraid that I would be like after Evil Dead remake, I was like, yeah, well, this wasn't done by Raimi, so I didn't like it. But I think that Alvarez did a really, really nice job. And I didn't have that feeling, you know, when I came out, it was like, wow, it was really good. Like it made me forget like Sam Raimi's directing. So for me, it was a big yes.
There's a couple of shots in that in the remake that are actually like they're really clever callbacks to the original. There's an over the head shot like in the original that Raimi does where it's like an over the head shot of Ash, so it comes like from the back over, and they open the remake with that movie as they're driving the Jeep into the across the state, which I thought was a really nice thing. And also her hand. So when her hand gets caught under the Jeep, there's this kind of almost a zoom in shot on it, which it calls back to like Ash's hand being possessed, but so totally different, but still kind of in that vein. So I thought it was pretty clever. I just think it kind of came out at not the wrong time, but just at that time where everything was coming out. And looking back at those, Kelly, we should do a hot stove on all those remakes. That's a good idea.
Oh my God, I would love to. I think I had that on a spreadsheet somewhere, but I can definitely add it if
So not to digress too much, but I mean, I remember when I saw the remake of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and like the one from
2009, I think
9 or something, whatever.
Oh no, 9 is Friday the 13th. Continue.
Yeah. So, and I was like, I don't know, I liked it, but I'm a huge fan of the original. But it wasn't until recently, like when I rewatched it, I was like, this is actually a pretty good movie, and that's probably because a lot of the other films that came out after that are I guess it's almost impossible to make a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie now. But so I'm glad that this one has a lot of love with the fans and stuff, and it kind
Definitely.
of and especially how they're doing like it's almost like this new series that doesn't seem to be like a sequel series or anything like that. And we'll talk about that a little coming up, I guess. But it's interesting to see where they're going to go. Now, I will say this, talking about like the horror elements and the comedic elements. I thought when I finished watching Evil Dead, the remake, I was like, I feel like Cabin in the Woods is like the sequel to this movie.
Yeah.
Where it goes in like really comedic, crazy kind of way. But I don't know. I don't know if the series needs it anymore. I think that the original trilogy is sort of like it's kind of a self-contained story with Ash.
For sure. I feel it's kind of like lightning in a bottle that way. Like you feel like you can't capture that same kind of energy twice, especially like, in 2013, I guess. But
yeah.
They leaned into it in Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Yeah, I was going to say the series. They definitely were able to kind of and that was the extension that everybody. If everyone was like dying for that extension of the original series, that's what Ash versus Evil Dead was. It was
Absolutely.
Like that's what you want, and it almost not almost it went further. It went further. It went crazier. It was goofier. It had more more laughs. It had more over the top characters, and it's like. Now they've created that separation where they're like, okay, cinematically, we're going to stick to the original theme of like, extreme horror to a degree, but it still has a little, it still has that little touch of Raimi's kind of zaniness to it, and just a little bit of over the top supernatural elements that kind of keeps everyone from feeling that it's too grounded in reality. You know what I mean? Like you still get that fantastic element to it.
Gotcha.
And, yeah, I think it's great.
I haven't actually seen the series, which is why we didn't include it as part of this hot stuff.
Okay, lucky you though, because that means you get to watch it for the first time.
Yeah, fair enough.
So much Bruce Campbell goodness. So much
Bruce Campbell. It's very good.
I wasn't a super fan of the first season. I thought that Ash character was just too stupid. But after season 2, I was like, "Oh, this is good," and I really, really loved season 3. And I was like, "Oh no, it's over! No, please don't."
Yep, I agree.
Do you think that's because, like, I mean, I always feel like it's a gift and a curse having so much time between like sequels or between projects that utilize the same IP. I think that's fairly relevant in basically every franchise that's in theaters nowadays. But this series, like, you do have some breaks in there between films of like 5-6 years and sometimes more. Do you think that's something that's kind of helped the franchise over the years, that like have that sort of sustained sort of like longevity, or is it something that's kind of hindered it because it hasn't catapulted it into like maybe one of the bigger franchises in horror, even though it's so revered?
I feel like having a bit of breathing room is not a bad thing, especially because it doesn't let you get sick of it. Like there's so much, I hate to say it, but Disney and Marvel properties, for example, like there's so many Star Wars, there's so many Marvel properties, there's so many movies that like you kind of start to lose interest because of how many are coming out and how frequently they're coming out. Whereas I feel like giving the breathing room to Evil Dead, and with horror in general, having that extra breathing room gives you an opportunity to really kind of miss it. And then it comes back and you're like, oh, amazing, I'm so excited to see this. And then you start to miss it again. Then it comes back 10 years later and it's like, oh, hell yeah, I'm so excited to see this. So I think it kind of helps it. But of course, like I always love to see more Evil Dead.
I think they benefited from not worrying about canon or rules or anything. With like to like go on your I'm going to use your Star Wars example, and not so much now, but even like previously we had, there's so many Star Wars books and there's Star Wars comic books, and you could do a lot of further reading, as where like Evil Dead is very clear, like the stuff that happened in the Evil Dead comics. So there was always Evil Dead media. We had comics, but they're a different canon. You know what I mean? Like they happen, but it's only in that one that, what is it? Cheryl goes to hell and gets pulled. Is it Cheryl?
Yeah.
Has to get like rescued from hell. Like there's like, but it's like, that's a different canon. So I think they have a lot of benefit of like there's media around, but there's no like continuing obligation. Like the Ash in Ash vs. Evil Dead, you could watch that in a vacuum, or you could also not watch it, and you're not going to be like confused about 2013.
I don't personally like that when they do that with IPs, where they're like, oh, okay, well, you'll only understand like movie 4 if you watch this television series, or you'll only understand. I mean, they did that with The Matrix, right? Which I know is not horror, but like it. But listen, I watched Matrix 4, and it was a horrific experience for me. So, but it's like, you're like, oh, well, who's that character? I don't know who that character is. Like, it's meaningless. It's like, oh, but you had to play the video game and read this comic and watch this thing, and I was just like, I don't have time to do that. Like I'm invested in this. I'm not invested in all this other stuff that you're trying to sell me. Right. So I feel like it's interesting to hear that, because I feel like Star Wars has done that too, where they're like, okay, well, this is canon because it was a book written by this guy or gal or whatever. And it was between the years of this and this. And it's like, I don't know. It's confusing, and I just don't have time for it personally, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Like,
Jake, you don't have time for a lot of stuff, right?
I got 3 kids, dude. I got no time for that. Actually, they're starting to get old enough that they want to watch horror movies and stuff. So that's good. I'm getting into the, I get to experience some of the stuff with them for the first time, which is awesome. But to go back to the spatial lapses between films, the only thing that I would say would be potentially a negative would be kind of what we faced now, where the season 3, they cut it off, and then people are like, oh, let's get behind it and bring it back for one finale movie, and Bruce says, I got an expiry date. I'm not getting, we're not going another 10 years and I'm going to start smashing plates over my head. Like I'm done. I'm old, like, so
please, he's unretired more times than Brett Favre. Okay. He'll be
it's true. But I mean, there is a point in time where he is going to be, you know what I mean? Like he's going to be old gray man Ash, and which he kind of is now. But you know what I mean? It's just to a point, you want to get the best from him, and he wants to give the best, and he kind of knew that, I think, when they were like, okay, the series is done, let's take it in a different direction. So again, it's great that they're kind of crafted this world and they're able to expand on it without the Ash character, and it's just a matter of getting the audience to accept that, which I think that remake helped to a degree. It kind of bridged the gap and kind of put the feelers out there to say, hey, let's expand the universe. And now that they've done that, they've reinvigorated the series, and I guess we'll all see when Evil Dead Rise hits theaters, and we kind of all get affirmation that Evil Dead truly has risen and is back in a big way. So
awesome.
Is the animated series still a thing? Is that happening?
There's always been talk about it, and I mean, there's still, like you were saying, an IP has lots of things, but I think if there was an animated series, I think it would also be something separate. I think they could explore, different stories that didn't really have to take place within the same world. And I don't know. I have no clue. It's the same with there's the Evil Dead video game, which is kids are, streaming online and playing and all that jazz. And it's like, let's just have fun with the characters in the franchise without having to, amalgamate everything into one solid ball of IP that has to be followed and canon and all that stuff.
Cool. Well, listen, if you're just joining us right now, we're broadcasting live to Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Of course, this is Takeover Tuesday, Hotstove from Hell edition, featuring the Evil Dead franchise. I'm your host, Benner, and of course, joining me is my co-host, Kelly McNeely, and of course, Jake Grimb and Lindsay Traves from all kinds of stuff that you write
from the internet,
right? From the internet, from the land of writing. And of course, Steve Villeneuve from director and writer and producer and inventor of Hail to the Deadites, which is a great documentary. If you get a chance to check it out, make sure you go and find it. It's a pretty awesome and very, very touching, surprisingly so, documentary on fans of the Evil Dead. Got a great audience tuning in tonight. Thanks, guys. Really, really do appreciate it. And like always, we throw up some comments from our guests and from our audience and get our guests' reactions to these. Of course, we've got longtime listeners of the show and two-time guests themselves, Spinsters of Horror. Jane Levy was outstanding. Of course, that's reference to the Evil Dead remake from 2013 and that Reign of Blood and I don't know how you
Chef's kiss.
Chef's kiss
There you go.
emoji. And of course, I know that was written. I'm pretty sure that was Kelly writing that because when it was raining blood. And Kelly, pipe in if you're still listening and still on board here. But all I thought it was Raining Blood by Slayer, which is what I thought they should have played at the end of that movie. But that's just me. Anyway, Steve, I'm going to need your help probably with this. But Stefan Labelle tuning in. Hey guys, for me, this is his ranking. It has to be Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, Evil Dead, the original, and then 2013 Evil Dead. Also, Army of Darkness was known as, Steve, help me out here.
L'Armée des Ténèbres.
Yes, here in Quebec.
There we go.
I know my limitations as a host, man. That's for sure. That's why I actually had you on. I was like, I know I'm going to get some questions tonight. So, but awesome. And yes, Kelly confirming it is her on the on the other end, Slayer. But yeah, so let's. I mean, one of the things I kind of wanted to get into was just like lasting effect of this franchise and how much of an impact it's had. I don't want to say culturally because I don't know if it goes that far, but certainly within films, as far as like, I mean, there's a horror community, so it's going to have an effect on that for sure. I've talked to a lot of people. I'm like, you've seen Army of Darkness, right? And they're like, what? And then it's like they don't know what I'm talking about. But how do you feel like the like how much of an impact has this franchise had on so many other films? And do any come to mind that you kind of, because when I put it this way, like when I watched the original, we were talking about like how it really feels like a horror movie. Like I feel it does have definite, like, you know, Dracula overtones to it, Exorcist overtones to it when it was made, which is always why I feel like they were going for. But I don't know. I just figured we would chat about that for a bit just to see kind of if anyone had some interesting thoughts on it.
I feel like that's one of the most immediately identifiable cult horror movies. Like you just say to like anyone like chainsaw, shotgun, and like they'll get what you're saying, I think. Which is really spectacular that it kind of developed from this just project that these friends wanted to put together. They got a lot of recognition and Stephen King saw it and loved it and promoted it. And then it just kind of blew up into this massive sensation that launched the career of Bruce Campbell and made Sam Raimi kind of a horror household name, I guess. Yeah, I think that it's definitely had such a lasting legacy, particularly in the horror community, of course. But there's just something about it that I think speaks to a lot of horror fans, perhaps because there's so much within it. There is those strong horror elements. There is that sort of goofy comedy elements. It has like some great one-liners, some great zingers, some fantastic performances. And all around, it's just like there's so much to love about the franchise, I think. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, and when the movie came out, a lot of people said it was the greatest homemade horror movie ever made. That was some obviously, and then Stephen King said he really loved the original. That's one of the reasons the sequel got made as well, is because Stephen King backed it, and he brought in, I can't remember the producer's name, but it was the same producer that was working with him on Maximum Overdrive.
Dino De Laurentiis.
Dino De Laurentiis, yes.
Yeah.
So that's how they got the extra cash, and that's how they convinced Raimi, I think, to make it, because he could put all the extra shit in at the end and stuff that he couldn't do in the first movie. But also, interesting fact is that Sam Raimi had just turned 20 right before he went to camera on the original film, which made me feel like the oldest person on the planet. But speaking of directors who have just turned 20, Steve, throwing it to you, what do you think? I mean, this is a movie that's influenced you as a whole person. Like you grew up and made a movie about the fans of that movie. How do you see its significance, like in a nutshell, I guess, as far as like its reach goes throughout cinema history?
I think that Evil Dead can influence a lot of young filmmakers because, you know, when you're looking at Evil Dead, let's say that you're taking like different movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, or Friday the 13th, or Evil Dead, you know, Evil Dead really looks like the kind of movie that you're a bunch of friends and you're taking camera and you're going into a cabin in the woods and you're shooting something maybe without any script. You know, it looks like that. So it's kind of the dream of every young filmmaker to just do that kind of film and be successful, you know. So I think that's one of the main reason people are really uh like Evil Dead, because like it's kind of giving them a reason to do films. I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
Yeah.
Good.
It's the
Yeah.
chase your dream kind of movie,
Yeah.
There
right?
you go.
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
felt like that I'm sure something came before it, but it always felt to me like that was the origin of Cabin in the Woods. Like not
yeah.
movie Cabin in the Woods, although obviously that was an influence too. But
Oh,
but just like going out to shooting a movie, where do we shoot it? Well, we've got
Mhm.
some woods. My
Yeah,
uncle has a
cabin.
cabin, and I wonder if like I think that's maybe the first incarnation of that on screen, but I'm sure I'm wrong. So if someone's listening and wants to correct me, feel free. But certainly there's a lot of movies that have come after that with like it kind of holds, I feel like falls into the same bucket as Halloween, the original Halloween, which influenced I hear a drink pouring. Who's that?
Yep.
That's me,
Oh, it's
sorry.
good. Anyway, listen,
I'm doing a bad job of judging this amount of tequila, so I'm going to put it down before I hurt myself.
Steve, you did give me a hard out time that you needed to leave, but I just wanted to say thanks so much for joining the panel momentarily. We'll have you back on for another Hot Stove, or we'll have you back on to another one of our one-on-one interviews where me and Kelly will chat with you. But my friend, thanks so much for tuning in and joining. And it's been a pleasure. I haven't talked to you in a while, so thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna see each other in a month, 2 months, a month at Chuckstock, I guess. Everybody's
Buddy, it's like 3 weeks.
3 weeks? I don't know.
That's a month. Come on.
For work, I need
Sorry,
to go
Jake.
to Barcelona just before, so I'm all messed up. It's in 3 weeks. Yay!
And listen,
I'm sure.
If you don't know when if you want any more details, you can just look at Jake's banner that he's put on
there you go.
his name, May 3rd to 7th. I thought it was, is it May 3rd to 7th? Because that's the film festival, right?
That's the festival. Yeah. The whole thing runs May 3rd to 7th. The weekend would be the 5th to 7th. That's the convention weekend.
Right. In beautiful London, Ontario. Of course, we talked about this in the last episode of Takeover Tuesday. We've got a lot of people tuning in from London that last episode. So thank you, London. At the world-renowned Ramada Hotel. I don't know the address, but you can look it up. Shockstock, go to shock-stock.com. And of course, follow Jake on Instagram for all the updates and that sort of stuff. It's a great event. And of course, Lindsay, are you going to Shockstock? What's the deal?
So first of all, I did some quick math right at the top here that I didn't call out, was that I got like a PR email, I guess, for Shockstock like last week. And I was like, what is this? And then got like so excited that there was a horror festival in London that I didn't know about. And then like went and like found all their socials and was like so excited. And it wasn't until like you logged in just now that I was like, oh, that's the guy.
The guy.
So very thrilling. So I don't know. I didn't like have it on my list, but I actually do sometimes work in London. So if it somehow happens to overlap, I will.
Well, the only reason I ask is that other than yourself, the rest of us are going, I think.
You're all going?
Oh, yeah. Well, maybe.
I'm pretty confident I am. I have to double. Yes, I don't think I would.
Whatever, you're going.
Yeah, I'm going.
Well,
I'm going.
We're doing a podcast from Shockstock, Kelly. You got to show
cool.
up. Great.
Well, maybe I won't. Well, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say this on a live feed, but maybe I'll exploit my employer to be like, I think I have to work in London that week.
There's very important business happening in London that week.
I'm so sorry, but I think you need to send me there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. I'm sure they're not watching this podcast or listening.
Yeah, I'm like, I hope.
Well, you never know. You never know. You were like, who's
too.
this Jake guy? Oh, he's the guy who sends out the PR stuff. Amongst other things, right, Jake? A lot of hats weren't being worn over there.
Yep, that's right.
Steve, we'll let you go, my friend. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in 3 weeks at like I said, the beautiful Ramada Hotel in London, Ontario for Shockstock.
Yeah.
I'll come back like 2 days before. I'm going to be in Barcelona for work, so I'm going to be freaking jet lag at Shockstock. It's going to be terrible.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. Exactly.
So that means you're gonna do an extra Larry shot. That's what that means.
Exactly. If you're sleeping under someone's table, it's going to be because you're tired and not because you're hungover.
Yeah, that's right. That's how it works over there.
I'm going to go sleep under Daryl's table with him under Twisted Tea table. He's always there.
We got extra room under the booth, buddy. Just bring a pillow with you.
Yeah. Yep.
All right.
All right,
Thank
my
you,
friend. Take care.
Bye.
See you soon. Okay, so then there was 4, right? So awesome. Wanted to throw in just a couple more comments here. Scotty Wakefield, I guess a long-time listener of the show now, I think Scotty's tuned in a bunch of times. What's up, guys? And also, this is the other guy that Jake works with. James, the other scumbag. I guess I don't know what ranking of scumbags you guys have down there in London.
He's the godfather.
He's the godfather.
But I'm the guy who actually like organizes and runs the show. He's just the godfather. He's like the guy.
You're the guy pulling the trigger.
Sucking his teeth, going, everyone has to give me a little slice of the pie, that guy.
Well, speaking of slices of the pie, he just piped in with a comment here saying, true story, the VHS of Evil Dead had a Ring type appeal to it, like the Ring movie, before anyone knew or knew what the Ring was. So basically older kids talked about it as this wicked movie, basically, and then they talked about it to their younger friends. And so it kind of had, I guess, a word of mouth, like grassroots kind of traveling roadshow type of vibe to it, where people are like, I got to see this movie. So that's interesting. I've actually never heard that before, but specifically about Evil Dead, but that makes actually a lot of sense. And speaking of which, I do have, let's see here. So Evil Dead on 4K, released by Lionsgate. Ooh. And then Evil Dead 2 on 4K, which I recently watched. I don't have the others on 4K yet, but Evil Dead 1 is like, it's only going to look so good because it was shot on 16 millimeter, right? But it is shot and it's presented in its original format, which is like kind of like just a regular VHS television screen, like that, the square format. I can't remember the actual aspect ratio of the 16 millimeter.
4:3. 4:3.
Yeah, 4:3. Thank you. Anyway, it's very, very interesting to watch because I always remembered watching it on a VHS or a TV. And I've never seen it in widescreen anywhere. So which is one of the reasons I picked it up, but it looks fantastic. Evil Dead 2, obviously shot on better film stock. It looks amazing. It's like the reds pop, all the special effects for the most part hold up, especially for when it was made. So really, really interesting. If you like 4Ks, if you're a film fanatic like I am, or a collector, definitely. I mean, I can't rave enough about 4Ks. It's one of the best upgrades you can make into your home theater. All these older films really, really do pop and come to life. Now, listen, I didn't get these given to me. Okay. Lionsgate. I actually went out and bought them. So it's no product placement from Lionsgate. I'm just saying, if you like the trilogy and you like the original films and want to see them like you've never seen them before, pick up the 4K. You won't be disappointed. So,
and you're not even getting paid to say that. So there you go.
I'm not even getting paid to say that. I know. It's absolutely.
Send us some copies here. Yeah. I like another. Apparently, so I don't like rankings, and also I never upgrade my physical media because I'm like the person who, when other people upgrade, I'm gonna go to the used DVD store and buy the one that you gave away. Nice. But I got a PS5 literally just to play Evil Dead the game and have a better experience with Evil Dead the game. It's the only game I've played on it, so very smart purchase. But it plays 4K, so
that's what I got.
I've been like, yeah, it's amazing. Okay. So I'm like a little more motivated. I'm like, maybe
I haven't picked up Evil Dead, or sorry, Army of Darkness in 4K yet, but I've heard that transfer is pretty phenomenal as well. And I'm I know that, 4K guys and gals are always like talking about, the sound audio, the audio is an upgrade and stuff like that. Fine. For me, it's always the picture quality. How accurate can the picture look? And the thing with 4K as well is that a lot of the times when they put out stuff on Blu-ray, they amped up all the contrast and stuff like that to make it look, flashier and like shinier than VHS or DVD. Right. So people would actually commit to upgrading their collections. Lindsay sensed that marketing and decided she was way smarter than I was. So, but what they've done with 4K is they've actually they've dialed all that stuff back, and it's a more accurate representation of what the film would have looked like for the first time in theaters. So The Shining is a really great example of that on 4K. And these movies look like that as well. I can say like I have, like the Evil Dead remake just on Blu-ray. It does have that kind of thing because of when it was put out 10 years ago. It looks great. But I'm curious as to what that's actually going to look like on 4K, because it was just put out by Shout Factory, I believe. So, but yeah.
See, I still have my Army of Darkness on VHS.
Whoa, you're
That's
cool.
I
have
the
a
gold
snap
one?
cover, like
the
black.
one with the gold with Ash, like with his hands raised on the front, or
no, it's the poster one with like the pose.
The Columbia House one. That's the first copy I ever got was from Columbia House. It was one of those like 10 tapes for a nickel kind of deals, and it was there. And
you watched the hell out of it.
That's right. I got that. I got Dr. Giggles. I got a whole bunch of like 90s Universal horror. It was all Universal stuff, like Child Play 2 and like all the stuff from that time period.
The
But
whole
yeah,
package.
Hey, at least you got Dr. Giggles, right?
that's right.
Yeah.
That was like
What'd you do
it was like
without it?
my 9th birthday party. We all watched Dr. Giggles or something. It was like I got kicked out of school when I was in like grade school for dressing up as Dr. Giggles for Halloween.
Right.
Which is just like a doctor, but
Spectacular.
I was telling them that I was Dr. Giggles, and they had the problem with that. But it was just a doctor's gown and a mask and a plastic scalpel. But like,
What, like not taking the doctor profession seriously? Like, what was the?
no, because it was based on a horror movie. No,
Oh.
it was
Implication.
Not approved. Yeah.
It was the implication. They were like, no, we don't like that. You gotta go.
Oh, it might have been because you were carrying a scalpel around with you, but
It was like a pencil with a scalpel, like piece of paper stuck to the end. It wasn't real.
yeah. I remember when I was a
Shiv.
kid. Yeah, when I was in grade 4, I think grade 3 or grade 4, like I just hear the Nightmare on Elm Street commercials like on TV. That's actually why one of the reasons we play the trailers on the podcast, because actually when you listen to it audio only, you're only listening to the trailer. You're actually not watching it, which is kind of a different experience, and it just reminds me of being a kid. But I took like one of those, those little flimsy gloves you pick up from the dollar store. I had one of those, and I took popsicle sticks and I sharpened them in the pencil sharpener and I stuck them onto this glove. And then my parents got called, and they had to come in and see my teacher because she was very concerned about where I was getting these ideas from. And then my mom didn't even know. She was like, I don't know where he's getting these ideas from. And I was just like, I was just listening to the radio because they would play like Nightmare. I think it was like, at the time, I think it was Nightmare 3. So Nightmare on Elm Street 3, the Dream Master. And it was just like it, but I don't know. That's where I got it from. But you know what, Jake? If anybody else told me that story, I'd be like, "That's not true." But because it's you, man, I totally believe it.
Dude, I don't make shit up. I don't need to. I've got so many dumb stories in my stupid life, but
and that's why we have you on, my friend. That's why we have you on.
Hey.
So for our audience out there, if you want to hear a dumb story, if any questions about Jake's childhood, please, I mean, every time I do one of these, Jake, I'm just always so happy that Orbax and Pepper aren't tuning in, specifically Orbax. But I don't see him piping in. There's no way he's watching. There's no way he's this quiet. So
it would be nonstop.
Yeah.
Anyway, but to go back on getting Evil Dead.
Way off track. Kelly, you're supposed to keep me on track here.
I was just about to jump in with another question, but let's do that.
Yeah.
Well, before we do, I wanted to go back because we were talking about the influence of the films, how they had on pop culture and stuff.
Yes,
that we didn't touch on was that not only were filmmakers influenced by it, but like into and the dawning and evolution of the video game business was a huge influence. If you played games like, being in high school and then games like Duke Nukem and Doom come out and, you're chopping guys up with a chainsaw, that only happened because of Evil Dead. Duke Nukem with his boomstick, that's a rep, all that stuff. Like those people were fans of the Evil Dead series, and it translated completely differently into a whole nother, a whole different type of media that, young adults and kids and stuff adapted to, and then later discovered, and it kind of bridged them and brought them into the world of Evil Dead by going, oh, that, I was Googling Duke Nukem games because it was one of my favorite, and I didn't realize that, They Live and Evil Dead were so influential on this. So then they go and they look at the source material, and it brings them into the world of Evil Dead. Yes. And Evil Dead is also one of the very few extreme horror films from the 80s, which is a growing number that's, has a musical theater based off of it.
Absolutely, yeah. That's
Has anyone gone to the? Anyone gone?
Yes, it's so good.
Okay, so I haven't gone. Yeah.
It's Canadian too. That was written by some. Yeah. It's a fantastic show.
Did you sit in the splatter zone?
So good.
No, but I really wanted to. In hindsight, like I went to a cabin in the woods last year for my vacation, and I'm just kicking myself now that I didn't play like the soundtrack the whole way there, because that would have been very, very fitting. But
there was go ahead.
Sorry, Lindsay, you want to? Yeah.
No, I've seen it, and I didn't sit in the splatter zone. And then I was like, oh, next time I'm sitting in the splatter zone. And I bought tickets for it, but the show got canceled because of the pandemic.
Same.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, splatter zone, like too soon.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be back for you.
Yeah.
Sunday. someday.
Let me know if anyone has any extra tickets. I'll definitely go because I
Yeah.
feel like I should. Is it playing anywhere now? Like, or is it?
I
Is
don't
it?
know. I think where I was going to see it was like either in like Windsor or London or something like
I
that. But like that was my Christmas gift. I was going to go in the slider.
I've seen it 3 times. I've seen the Toronto production, and I've seen the Windsor the London production, and I think Kitchener production.
Oh
which
yeah,
was the Kitchener one was in London last year, I think.
So good.
And always it's always different, which is really cool. But an interesting story about the Evil Dead musical is that opening night of the very first Evil Dead musical performance in Toronto was the day of that massive province-wide blackout.
Really? It was that long ago?
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I only know that because I wasn't there, but somebody I know was there, and they did the show in the parking lot, and all the cars went around them, and they put their headlights on, and they performed in the
shit.
That is
it like a cappella.
magical.
Yeah, they did it anyways. The show must go on.
Oh, love that so much.
That's
that's
awesome.
Love that.
Yeah,
that's like the greatest. That is so great. I didn't realize the show is that has been running that long, because that blackout was when I was at camp, like summer camp. So I was in like 12.
Lindsay, don't say shit like that, okay? You can't say stuff like that on the. You can't say that stuff like that on the podcast. I remember like I went home from work that day.
Yeah.
No, I'm not younger than you. Were there 2 blackouts?
Maybe.
I think
because I'm like, this feels like I'm not. Like
it was also
okay.
It was also opening day for Freddy versus Jason, so I don't know when that would have been.
2003.
Were there 2 blackouts?
I feel like there was 2 blackouts. I feel like Canada sucked that much for a while.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And I take that back.
I don't
Sorry.
know. Because I was like, wait.
Journalistic correction.
I'm like, hold on.
Guys out there, anyone listening,
there.
was there 2 blackouts? Was there 1 blackout or 2 blackouts? And when were someone Google that? Like,
when were they? I have an answer to your question. I'm also bringing it back about the influence.
Yes, sure.
Because we already talked about Cabin in the Woods, which is obviously a massive one. But I also think like you were touching on sort of the idea of getting your camera and going out there. And I think to me, 2 big examples are Blair Witch and Saw.
Definitely.
And Blair Witch is like an easy, they literally did that. They literally went to the woods with a camera, sort of. And Saw isn't exactly guerrilla filmmaking, but it was like cheap, shitty friends who made a short film and then turned it into a feature film. I always compare the shaky cam or the Raimi cam or whatever, how that was like, this is our cool way of making it look cool without spending any money. And then now it's like a technique that people use.
Yeah.
I think that's really similar to what happened in Saw. And I talk about this a lot, so sorry if you've already heard me say this 50 times, but similar to what they did in Saw, they removed frames because they didn't have enough money to do special effects. So they removed frames from shots, and that kind of created that panic angst, which happened in Mad Max Fury Road later. The movie that had a lot of money. They did the same kind of thing.
Amazing.
So I think that they're really comparable, and Saw became this colossal, gigantic franchise in the way that Evil Dead did. And same with Blair Witch, I guess, not really colossal, but became a thing. And then Blair Witch became, Paranormal Activity, sort of, which became a big franchise. So I think those are also probably.
Yeah.
It was the first domino in a long chain of horror movies, I think, for sure.
It does remind me a lot of Texas Chainsaw 1.
Yes.
The first Evil Dead movie. Even James was just saying with his comment, saying it had this allure that was you heard older kids talking about something that as a younger kid you probably shouldn't know about. So it becomes I gotta check that out. And I remember kind of that sort of Saw, I guess. I think I saw Saw fairly early on. But I do know that there's other films that have come out that have kind of got that word of mouth. You're not gonna believe this movie or see it. But I think it was things were different back then. You couldn't just go online and watch a trailer or read an article or whatever and get the lay of the land. And Rotten Tomatoes is really great for stuff, just seeing if a movie is, for the most part, are people liking it? Which is, it's all depending on who you like as critics or what your tastes are and that sort of stuff. It's all up to individual opinion, of course, but you didn't really have that. You maybe had the local guy or the guy in the paper in the closest city that you were saying if you liked it or not. So whether or not you like that person reviewing the movie. but again, it was sort
or
of
the
like that.
picks at the video store. Remember, you'd have like
Yeah,
a
staff
right,
picks.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That was
and
the
and I
way.
kind of remember like that happening with early on with Tarantino movies. Like I remember Reservoir Dogs came out, and that was the movie. That was people were like, oh man, it's like really violent and it's
Like,
really
oh,
offsetting and like whatever. It's not necessarily a horror movie, of course, but Ring was a great example too. James brought up, which was just like I think Seven when I was growing up was one of those things where my mom was like, I don't care what you go. She was like, if you're going to the movies, just do not go and see that Seven movie. And
Okay.
we were like,
Oh my God.
okay.
I totally misunderstood you as suggesting that The Ring came out when you were 7, and I was like, "Is this the guy that just said I made him feel old?"
I was in when did The Ring come out?
What?
2001. Like I felt like The Ring was like that was like kind of
9 or 10, I think. Yeah.
the resurgence
Something like
of like mainstream horror or getting horror into mainstream hands. I thought was like that was the movie everyone would talk about. Sixth Sense did it a bit too, but whether or not you consider that a straight horror movie or not.
It was sort of a boost of the time that they had a lot of American remakes of like Japanese horror films, and B, a lot of remakes of 1980s horror films as well.
Yeah,
it's kind of like right at the start of that.
My biggest thing I think was like when I went to see Doc Strange 2, like in Multiverse of Madness or whatever, which is not a great film, but sorry, Sam Raimi, but the fact that Sam Raimi directed it, like, made me laugh in the theater, like probably half a dozen times.
For sure.
And it was one of those things where, like, I'm sure there was an old guy chuckling in the back, but like I was the only person laughing in like this multiplex of people that are like Marvel fans, right? Because he utilizes the same techniques, $200 $300 million like a big tentpole, superhero movie.
Okay, since you brought it up,
which I thought was hilarious, right? It made me laugh a lot. So yeah,
he also made Spider-Man. And I saw you. I'm not implying that you didn't know that. I don't know why I said it like that.
Yeah, really?
Like, he also made
He also made Spider-Man 2?
And 3.
I said it like that.
And wait, what?
Yeah, the third one. Okay, chill,
I'm having a beer.
I don't know why I said it like that. But I saw the Evil Dead movies late. Like I saw them for the first time within the past 10 years or so. And it was like a quick love, but I had always loved the Spider-Man movies, which I saw first. And I remember, this is like going to be obvious to anyone who's seen a movie. Like everyone watching this is like, yeah, Lindsay, we know. But the first time I went back and watched Spider-Man 2 after being an Evil Dead fan, that Doc Ock scene is pure Evil Dead. And that was like it was completely lost on me as like a high school student or however old I was when that movie came out. Like I didn't get that at all. And I was like rewatching it, I don't know, again, in the past 10 years or so. And I was like, good Lord, he literally just put a full-on Deadite chainsaw scene in the middle of a Spider-Man 2. And we're all like, okay.
You're like, go for it, man.
Marvel was like, well, not Marvel, I guess. Sony was like, here you go.
Make the money.
The other scene too that's very 100%. It's very reminiscent of Evil Dead is in Spider-Man 1 when Willem Dafoe is talking to the mask. I always feel that's like you could take that right out of, and it's because it's Willem Dafoe and he's like amazing, right? But like I always thought that could come out right out of Evil Dead 2. But I mean, it's interesting because I feel like directors sometimes they're kind of like guitarists, right? In rock and roll, where it's like some people will play the guitar or play an instrument that as soon as you hear it being played, you know the person playing it. And not just like guitarists, but let's say musicians, like not singers because it's too distinguishable, right? Because you kind of know how that singer sounds. But like I can kind of always tell when Elton John's playing the piano on any song, even if he's just guesting or whatever, because I'm like, it sounds like Elton John, and lo and behold, it's Elton John. Sam Raimi is kind of exactly like that. Like if you didn't know, like if you walked into Doc Strange 2 and didn't know that Sam Raimi was directing it and watched that movie, you'd be like, I think that Sam Raimi directed this movie because he's got that visual style. Darkman is like I was mentioning earlier, like I love Darkman 1 at least. I think that's I think that movie was way ahead of its time. And it's some of the stuff but he doesn't necessarily like do that all the time either. Like A Simple Plan is one of my favorite movies, a great thriller, but he kind of knows when to tone it down a bit. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't it's surprising that not too many people really try and copy his style. It's like almost like he's that revered as a director, and he's made this classic movie that people don't necessarily try and copy it, I guess. Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe
Edgar Wright gets close. I think Edgar Wright gets close at times. Like he has like the sudden close-up shots that he does a lot, and which to me always reminds me of Evil Dead as well, when he's like grabbing the chainsaw and those sudden like zoom in.
Yes.
Yeah. Very Edgar Wright. Every time I see those, I'm like, yeah, I love it. But also like with Evil Dead too, the fact that the entire franchise, save the 2013 remake, was all composed by the same guy, Joseph LaDuca, as well. And to me, like there's such a marriage between the music and the visuals of those movies. Like you can hear part of his score. He even scored it for Ash vs. Evil Dead as well, which is another reason why I think it feels so distinctly, Bruce Campbell aside, feels so distinctly Evil Dead, is it has that same flavor, that same character that is sort of translated through the music that, again, has that wonderful marriage with Sam Raimi's visual style too. They just go hand in hand, and it's such a character. It's such part of the franchise to me.
And even at the end of Evil Dead 1, where like the evil comes back, and it's kind of a cliffhanger, which is sort of like redone or extended, I guess, in the sequel. But the music ends with some weird song, like it's some happy kind of song, and I can't remember what it is. But that's the other thing that I was wondering: was that the first time, or one of the first times it was ever done, where it was like, here's this kind of like horrific kind of horror movie, lots of suspense and tension, and ends on such a weird. Like X-Files used to do it a lot. Like that's the common callback, I guess. Like doing like I remember when I saw Insidious, and they had the Walking Through the Tulips, or
Tiptoe
that song.
Through the Tulips. Yeah.
What's it called?
Tiptoe Through the Tulips.
Tiptoe Through the Tulips. Thank you. And it was like, and it's going to be in a bunch of horror movies. But X-Files used to do it really, really well. They would show some bloody, crazy scene, and they would play like some sort of like nursery rhyme or like a old 50s or 30s track over top of it. And that's kind of at the end of Evil Dead too. I'm wondering if that's like one of the first times that like that was ever done. I'm not sure. So, but
good question though. That's definitely because I know that's something that I love when it's done effectively. On the flip side of that, I feel like there's a lot of, again, like 2000s era horror movies that like had the weirdest choice and end credits music that I've heard in a long time.
New metal, man. It was all new metal.
All new metal. New metal. Like it ends with like this really serious tone, and then it's just like something like really like upbeat and just like new metal. Like it's just like, this does not fit at all, and I love it.
What's that? Halloween 6 has a great. I went and found all the. I was on a big
like a supercut.
I went and made a playlist. I should put it on Spotify. But it was actually when we were going down the Shockstock, Jake, the one year, and I was like, so we took tracks from like, we obviously took Dream Warriors, and we took like that Alice Cooper track from Friday the 13th, and like there's a bunch of weird songs that like at the end of like Scream has a couple. They were used sometimes. Mostly they were covers, so it'd be like some weird like 2000s era rock band doing a cover of some other track. But Halloween 6 has like one of my favorite tracks, because it's so like, it's such an Ersky Bursky like Creed like rip off before Creed even showed up. Like it's like I don't know why I like it. I can't remember the name of the song. I'll have to look it up. I'll look it up when someone else is talking, but it's like, it's ridiculous. But I did make this playlist. So hey, listen, if there's any interest, maybe I'll try and put it together as a Takeover Tuesday playlist that you can put together. And you know what? You can recreate my Shockstock from 5 years ago and put it on your car while you go to Shockstock 2023, right? Jake, what incarnation is this? How come that's not in your flag at the bottom?
Well, 11? You know what? It's technically, yes, it's 11, because we started 2011, but then we had 2 years of pandemic. So it would be our 10th birthday, 11th anniversary, 13 years in. It's just gone now. So
lucky number
Shockstock
13.
died, and then last year was Shockstock Lives, and now we've got Shockstock Escapes. It's
I love that.
So you're going for like a Planet of the Apes vibe, I guess.
No, it's if you look at the poster on the website, it's like an old King Kong versus Mecha King Kong. King Kong Escapes. So it's Shockstock Escapes, and it's the ultimate battle between analog and digital. That's what we're doing this year. So
a tagline.
Okay, are we gonna get sailor hats again this year? I hope so.
No sailor hats this year. But we do need to bring that back soon. I think that it's due time to bring it back. There was a few. there was a few things that didn't work year to year in terms of like trying to create a theme or anything like that. But the Wild and Greasy games were that one stuck. That one, people like every year. It's like, are we doing the sailor hats? Are we competing?
So I'm gonna explain this because sometimes the last podcast we promoted Shock Stock on the news update as far as like an upcoming event, and I said you can't really explain Shock Stock, you just need to go and experience it. It's something you experience, you don't just hear about it. But I will explain this for other people who might be interested in going. Lindsay being one of the people that might want to go, but a few years ago, there was the Wild and Greasy games, and it was like the tagline was something like, Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, it was like, come get wild and greasy at Shock Stock. And then when you showed up, everyone got like a sailor hat, and it either said Team Wild or Team Greasy on it. And then everyone like there was like all these games and stuff that you played, or it really devolved into just like people out drinking each other. But like,
and we separated everyone, and then it was like, we had 2 tip jars at the bar, one for Team Wild, Team Greasy, and they were like, which team's gonna tip the bartender the most?
That's nice.
Which team's gonna recycle the most empties? We had garbage cans.
That's nice.
And it was like, and it's just like, this is a way we're just gonna get people to tip more and clean up after themselves. And,
using your powers for good. Yeah.
And you know who took all those empties back and cashed it himself? I wonder. James.
No, it wasn't. It was the bar. It was the staff at the Ramada. But it was great because the staff was wearing the hats, and like, you know, we made sure if 2 people came in, you know, together, if a group of friends came in together, we're splitting that team. We're like, nope, you guys you're competing against each other.
I have that somewhere. I'll get. You know what? Listen, tell you what. Leading up, I'm gonna get it, and I'll put it on the next episode. I'll put it. I'll try it if I find it. I'll put it on. The thing.
It was a weekend of friendly competition, was what it was, and we just competed about everything. But
everyone in sailor hats, like it's something to behold. It really is. Yeah. So listen, come down to Shock Stock for sure. So, Lindsay, if that doesn't convince you, I don't know.
Like, I have a hat. Like, I'll bring it. I have also like a backlog of Team Sadako and Team Kayako hats, which I feel like could be your next theme. I'm just
perfect.
Saying.
Yeah. Oh, we were contemplating, because we were thinking of this year, and it might still happen next year, but we were going to make it like, if we were potentially going to have to move our dates. So we were looking at making it the Summer of Love, and we were going to have like flower crowns, and there would be different flowers. So we were going to do like a hippie theme, and then like the Shock Stock house brands, Sprocket Damage was going to be like all 60s psychedelic, and like we were just going to like totally just play right into it. And but that hasn't happened yet, but it might happen next year. We never know.
Lindsay, you have to come to this. You have to come to this thing. It's amazing. Just come with Kelly.
Okay.
It's
all right. Well, Kelly and I don't live near each other. Well, maybe we do. Maybe we do.
Big shout out to our audience tonight. Thanks for sticking around for sure. And if you're listening to us on one of the rebroadcasts on Apple and Spotify, we do appreciate you listening to and spreading the word about the show. Of course, it helps us out and myself and Kelly and Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday, of course, but also helps our guests out and our panelists help promote the stuff that they're doing, which is all super cool stuff. Like we just told you about, stuff like that, right? So listen, we're broadcasting live to Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, and of course, rebroadcasting, like I mentioned. A couple of we've got some people piping in some stuff. Of course, okay, so Darth Renus, I think, said, I'm late, stupid work. Don't worry. We're still going to be talking for a little bit longer. I was given no deadline, no timeline to cut off the show. So that's great. Spincers of Horror piping in scumbags for life. I don't know who they're referring to. They might be themselves. It might be us. I don't know. But I mentioned Planet of the Apes in passing. So Chris Giroux has given me 3 claps. So that's great. Thanks, G. I appreciate that. Nathan Hill piping in, where do you think Sam Raimi gets his ideas from? I'm not sure. We can come back to that. And the follow-up question is, Darkman greater than Evil Dead? I'm assuming Evil Dead 1, Nathan.
No.
But I fucking love Darkman. Like,
Darkman's a great movie. But
Darkman is a great movie.
Best advertising. Like, it was the best campaign when it came out.
It was on the back of comic books.
Yeah.
That's all they needed to do. But, and you know what, though? And I think Darkman and Evil Dead and like everything that he did leading up to and him getting the job for Spider-Man, like there was no one else better for the job. And I think Darkman's a great showcase of what his style could do outside of the horror genre. It's so effective within the horror genre, but like Lindsay was saying about Spider-Man and how You know what I mean? Like, it's so very Sam Raimi, but Sam Raimi's style is also so very, you know, over the top. It's comic book. It is a visual comic book, and in Army of Darkness is a visual comic book in a sense. You know what I mean? They took their style and they went to the lengths that they did to create that, and now, you know, even, you know, Marvel is continuing on and bringing him in for Doctor Strange and stuff, and it's like, yeah, there is nobody better for the job because his style it translates, you know, comic books to film so effectively.
Well, I mean, I just heard a thing from Steven Spielberg who said he cast Liam Neeson in Schindler's List because he wasn't really well known, and he wanted someone in that role that he didn't want a big, like, you know, Hollywood like superstar that would be very recognizable in the role because it was such a serious movie. And I was like, fucking Darkman, like like everyone forgets Liam Neeson was Darkman. And also at the end of that was, I think, the start of I think Bruce Campbell being in every Sam Raimi movie. Because at the end of the movie, there's like a monologue where he says, you know, I'm in the shadows, or I can't remember what he says, but something cool like that. And then the guy turns around the crowd and it's actually Bruce Campbell because he's changed his face again, and it's Bruce Campbell. And everyone who didn't know who Bruce Campbell was like, who's that guy? And everyone who's Evil Dead fans were like, yeah, it's Schmidt. Like, so, and I think because of course that was before Army of Darkness came out. Right. So, and that leads me into my next comment from, again, Spinsters of Horror. Okay. So this can be a question for any of us. I'll leave it up to the panel who takes it first, but
Sure.
Who is sexier, Bruce Campbell or Ash?
I'm saying Ash.
Oof. That's a good question. I think Bruce.
Ash has
but it's
boobs.
tough. But it's tough. I think Bruce.
I'm gonna say it's a tie.
It's the chin. The chin wins.
They're both so sexy, and technically, I guess both the same person. So.
Bruce is well dressed.
Yeah, exactly. But
Ash has been well dressed.
He's got well dressed with a chainsaw hand.
Chainsaw hand is cool.
Stick. He's very capable. We've learned time and time again. Even though he
is a himbo. We love a himbo.
We do love a himbo.
Ash is a himbo. I don't.
Better, you gotta watch the series.
That's true. He dresses well.
Makes the difference.
In this, yeah, that's true. The series kind of makes the difference.
I love the s-mart scene though. The s-mart scene is the funniest.
He's good. He's hot.
It's great.
Hot.
Yeah.
Like so my favorite sequence in that, Lindsay, is when he throws the gun up in the air and then he does that little jump onto the trolley and catches the gun and just unloads like 500 shots from like a 2-shot shotgun. Like, I laughed so hard. Even when I was a kid, I laughed at that scene so hard. I thought it was so ridiculous, and I still love that scene to this day. So I'm gonna go with Ash Williams, which nobody remembers his last name. So
Ashley Joanna Williams. Okay. How dare you say nobody? How dare you?
I thought I got away with one there. Kevin piping in here, just saying, "Good job, friends." Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate you joining the conversation. We're gonna make you part of the. We're gonna have you on as a musical guest at some point, I think. So
he's also chipping in. Ash 100%. So
there we go. Okay, it breaks the tie. I got
a lot to think about today.
Listen, we're kind of on the home stretch here, so I won't keep everyone for too much longer. But I did have a couple of questions, and we promised we would reveal who had seen Evil Dead Rise, and of course the answer to that was Steve, and he's no longer with us, so we don't actually know how. No, I'm just kidding. It wasn't Steve. He was a last minute addition to the show, but it was actually Lindsay yourself. So you had the opportunity. You went down to the world premiere of Evil Dead Rise, which is the 5th installment in Evil Dead franchise, at this year's South by Southwest. What can you tell us about the movie? Obviously, I know you're sworn to secrecy and all that stuff, but
I wrote about it on the internet.
But we will preface this segment by saying absolutely no spoilers.
I won't spoil anything.
We're just going to talk about general thoughts and feelings and how
it's not a monster. Of course, no spoiler.
I know, but I just want to say that because people will just go no and they'll just tune out.
Yeah,
right?
they'll tune out.
They'll click away.
Let's. Can we chat about that a little bit? Like, what were your thoughts, initial impressions coming out of the theater?
Sure. I mean, I'm going to let you sort of guide me if I'm saying too much, too little. I'm like the Frank Costanza, like I like to go in fresh. We'll like yell at you if you're like, no, I just want to tell you about this one cool part. So I'm very sympathetic to spoiler-free people. So stop me if you think I'm going too far.
Sure. Just general, like broad strokes, right? Like no of the details, but like how does it fit into as a follow up to the remake? Maybe we'll start there.
I would say it's not. I wouldn't go into it expecting it to be a follow up to the remake. I think this is pretty like this is not something that you'll learn from the movie. This is something, if you're one of those people who reads interviews or whatever, sort of the idea of this, you know, are there different canons? What's happening? The idea is that if you remember in Army of Darkness, Ash sees 3 different books. This is the 3rd book, is kind of what Lee Cronin posited. So he's being very free with the canon. He's kind of like, one book is in Ash world, one book is in 2013 world, the 3rd book is in our world.
Oh, interesting.
I know.
Cool.
That's kind of like, yeah. I know.
I
was like, okay. When he said that, I was like, yeah, I'm all in on that. So the kind of idea is that this is very free from both 2013 and 81. So it's very free from that. Tone, it's not the same tone as any of the movies before it. So I think that people will have a good time and be surprised by the tone, because it's not, well, I mean, the first one, it's not the slapstick of the second 2, and it's not the pure terror of 2013. It's got its own tone, which I think is really fun.
So does it ride that line fairly well, or?
Yeah, I think it kind of hovers between them both. Yeah, I kind of heard going into it, and again, I was like, "Don't tell me that," to the very nice person who was just trying to like have a conversation with me. He was like, "This one is."
What do you mean, Darth Vader's Luke's father?
Oh, God!
Spoiler.
Yeah, he was like, "I was just trying to tell you something." But his version of it, that he was like, "This is its own movie, but it's still very." I can't remember how he worded it, but I'm going to say that it treats the originals with reverence, whereas like well, not reverence, maybe that's not fair. 2013 was trying to do its own thing completely separate from the comedy, as where this one is not trying to separate itself from the comedy, but it's not a comedy in the way 2 and 3 are. Does that?
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I was confused with it. Yeah. Like, because I'd heard that it wasn't like it wasn't a direct sequel to either thing. So it was a bit loosey goosey, and I didn't really know what they were doing with it. It looked to me like they were sort of saying, look, every 5 or 10, like 10, it's been 10 years since the remake came out, right? Which is a decade. It's a huge amount of time. Where they were just going to say, look, somebody else is going to take a stab at an Evil Dead movie and try and make something kind of completely sort of self-contained, but still with some shout outs to the past and that sort of stuff. I mean, Sam Raimi's still involved in this one, I think, as a
producer,
EP. Yeah, as an EP, right? As an executive producer. So, so he's still got some sort of like saying to that, which is interesting too. So, but that's actually a cool take on that. I was actually,
it's very helpful.
Yeah. I'm actually more pumped for it now, actually, now that I know that.
I'm really curious to see it, because like I love The Hole in the Ground, and I think that Lee Cronin does a great job with directing kids. So I'm really kind of curious to see how he works with that in this new one. And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, the 2013, even like rewatching it last night, I was still like it still makes me anxious. It still makes me tense. And watching the trailer for Evil Dead Rise, the cheese grater, I was immediately like nervous about seeing it. And I love that, because I so rarely get nervous about a horror movie. So the fact that it seems to kind of still have that gnarly flair to it, but at the same time that it does something very different, is what I'm curious to see. And love Irish horror. It's very gothic. So I'm kind of curious to see if that comes into this as well.
There's a lot of... Yeah,
sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead. Yeah.
Just on the Irish piece, there is, I don't even know if it's like super conscious, but it's definitely Irish. I would say. I think like
Irish.
Leprechaun cameo, like
Irish.
Hey guys.
I would say, and I'm actually kind of curious, because I kind of thought it and then checked myself on it, and it's almost, I don't want to get too into it, but I'm almost curious everyone's take, like the whole like, and it's a trailer line. So I'm not, it's a line from the trailer. I don't know.
Yeah.
When she's like, "Mommy's with the maggots now," which is 10 out of 10. Great line. That to me was very The Exorcist, very religious horror. And this gets a little close to that. And initially I was like, I don't know if I like this whole hell demon thing. But then I was like, well, Evil Dead never really shied from that. But the Necronomicon makes it very like not that somehow. So I'm actually like really curious what people's thoughts on it feeling very traditional demon-y, where I feel like Evil Dead is obviously demon-y, but it's like kind of its own.
It's Necronomicon. It's a different Book of the Dead.
Yeah. So I'm actually really curious other people's sort of takes on that.
Oh, I'm
Interesting.
so excited now.
Just
I'm so excited.
a couple of things just before we go on, because I want to talk about how this falls into the franchise as well. But just looking this up, people say Bruce Campbell, yes, he's 64 years old, so he is getting up there. Maybe they can lure him back with a $20 million paycheck, a la Harrison Ford for Indiana Jones. But at 64, he's probably got a few more, like Jake, like what you're saying, he's probably had a few more plates broken over his head than Dr. Jones, right? But and also, well, he did star in Crime Wave, which was the movie, like the flop that Sam Raimi made after Evil Dead 1. Surprisingly, and I always wondered this, for the last little while when I found it out, was that the Coen brothers actually co-wrote that movie, Crime Wave, with Sam Raimi, and it didn't do well at all. It was made for a $2.5 million budget, and the box office was $5,100.
No.
So
no.
So apparently it's so now I have to see it because of the failure of the film, like I mentioned, like he got roped into doing Evil Dead 2, which that's how we got that movie, which is actually kind of interesting. But
one of the Coens helped to edit the original Evil Dead, I think. Was it the original or the sequel?
Oh, really?
Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2? Yeah, one of the Coen brothers was like with Sam Raimi.
That would explain it. Yeah, so I guess they're good. But which is crazy, right? Like if you think about, like I love that stuff just because it's like Sam Raimi went on to direct the Spider-Man trilogy, which is probably responsible for the MCU, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Coen brothers have directed, million, like I don't know,
a
how
lot.
many movies,
They've
a lot of
directed
movies
a lot.
that are like directly influenced into pop culture, infused into pop culture.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating to see how that kind of came out of like low budget sort of horror, straight to video or VHS.
I think with stuff, Within the Woods was the sort of proof of concept that Sam Raimi had that he brought forward to kind of get financing for Evil Dead.
That was a short film. Yeah, that was a short film.
Blood Simple was like kind of inspired by how he did that as well, from what I understand, but I might be wrong about that. But yeah, I'm pretty sure with the Coens, like they kind of took a page from his book and were like, oh, how can we kind of do the same sort of thing? And that's when Blood Simple kind of
crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So getting back to like Evil Dead 5, I guess, there was a lot of rumors for a long time, even after the remake came out, that they were going to actually make Evil Dead 4. It was supposed to be called Evil Dead 4 Ash to Ashes, which I still think they should make because it's such a great title. Yeah. Maybe that's Old Man Ash, right? Like, I don't know, but
that's Bubba Hotep Ash.
Yeah. So Ash, like Bruce Campbell done being Ash, like we're good with that. Like I felt when I watched the remake too, like they were really they were going to try and create like a new Ash or go in that direction, or they teased it a lot, like Kelly, like you were mentioning, they teased that in the movie, and then it doesn't happen for just to kind of like swerve people. But where's the franchise? Should it go somewhere else, do you think? Is this enough, or does it need to have like sort of resurgence? Does it need to be remade again, or where do you think it should go?
I kind of love the 2013 and now 2023, like the kind of standalone quality that they have, that like it's kind of a spiritual sequel, but at the same time, like it's not the same characters, it's not the same story, it's not the same book, as we learned. It's sort of something a little bit similar but different, and I kind of think that kind of gives some cool flexibility for them to keep the Evil Dead alive while giving them a lot of room to do different stuff, but that's, what do you guys think?
I agree. Mm-hmm. I feel like I talked a lot. Sorry.
No, talk more.
Jake's trying to think of all the other promotional things he can say.
No. I was gonna say, like, I think that the remake, and I think that even early response to the new film, and what I think people are looking to do with the franchise is like everyone's saying that they don't want to replace. Obviously, no one wants to replace Ash. They're not looking for a new Ash. But Maya in the remake became a character that people were like, oh, we'd like to see her back. And, you know, this new film, I'm sure, is going to have a similar, you know, where strong characters can and may possibly move on and live on. And the opportunity is still there. You know, they could essentially, after Evil Dead Rise is successful, go back to, you know, the Maya character and bring her out into another film, and people would be absolutely accepting of it. And I think that's one thing that, you know, even though the Evil Dead franchise was kind of, you know, for a long time carried by, you know, Bruce Campbell, carried by Ash, that it was Ash versus the Evil Dead. You know what I mean? The Evil Dead and the Deadites and the idea, the concept of the Necronomicon was just as strong a character in the series as Ash was.
For sure.
And so they just said, oh, you know what? This is the side that's continuing on. Nobody talks about that. It's the Evil Dead. It's not, you know, the Ash sequel. It's the Evil Dead sequel. The Evil Dead are continuing on. The Deadites, the Necronomicon is what will continue to haunt generations to come.
Yeah, the Necronomicon is to Evil Dead what the city of New York is to Sex and the City. Like, it's just like, that's just its thing.
Kelly, we said specifically no Sex and the City references on the show.
I'm leaving.
I think I've seen like 2 episodes. I got nothing.
Has anyone played the game? Have any of you played the game? Yeah.
What's your go-to character?
AOD Ash, baby. All day. I'm a melee player till I die. Although I also really like support Ash. He's my second.
I'm Hunter Ash.
You're Hunter Ash all the way.
I'm not a good
you know
hunter.
What?
I like good. You know what? I gotta. It's all about the chests. It's all about finding those chests and being able to see through walls.
But I know. But if you get the Hunter Ash and Ed, if you're willing to do 2 hunters, then you're laughing. Obviously,
I need to play this.
Game. It's a really good game. It's kind of on the outs. It had a really good year. It's kind of but there's a new DLC coming. I don't know. But
end of the month.
Game. Big fan. End of the month. Big fan.
End of the month.
Ball's coming, baby. The reason why I bring it up is because did you ever play through the missions in the game?
Yep.
Okay. So the missions, this game, it's a game in the vein sort of like Friday the 13th or whatever, where you play around 4 survivors against a demon, and you know, whatever. It's in what do they call it? Asymmetrical game. Games take about a half hour. Blah blah blah. But you can also do these missions where you collect information. Blah blah blah. The canon in the game, because they're like all these characters, 4 ashes, or I guess 5 if you can't evil Ash. There's 5 ashes. A lot of ashes. How does that make sense? And the game has this like canon where there was like some mess up in the rift in the space-time continuum because of all the Necronomicons that like blended all the canon together. And that's how all the ashes are living at the same time. And that's how Mia Allen is in the same world as Ash. It's kind of fun. So I think it's like a really cool way of sort of like continuing the legacy and kind of messing with canon in such a way that that's how Mia and Ash can be in the same universe, which is kind of cool.
I like that. And I mean, the Delta made it from...
made it across.
Made it across.
Because maybe the Necronomicon like sucked it in and spat it out. We don't know.
Yeah.
Multiverse of madness is what I'm saying.
Multiverse of Necronomicon.
Okay, it made sense.
Okay, so I might have to get the game. So it's for PS5, you said, right, Lindsay?
Yeah, or 4. You can get it for both.
Okay.
Oh, I have one of those.
I'm on Xbox. I'm the Xbox guy.
It has crossplay.
Always something, right, Jake? Always something.
But you can still play together. It's not like Friday the 13th
That's
where
right.
you have to have the same system.
Oh,
you can still play with each other.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Which Xbox is it on? Is it Xbox, whatever the one is?
I have no idea.
The newer ones. The same ones.
The one that's the fancy one.
I know that
Texas
Chainsaw Massacre game's coming out. I know.
Yeah.
I'm really
My
pumped for that.
hype is
Daryl, shout out Daryl
high.
Twisted Tees. He's really pumped for that movie too, or that game too. But
I got the soundtrack right behind me, the special edition.
Take that, podcast listeners that can't see. No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I know. Because I know people. You can still go down to the cabin and get I think the only thing that's left there is the fireplace,
chimney,
right?
or
a chimney.
Chimney or
So
fireplace.
you can I think there's still bricks that people can get from there and stuff like that, but I don't think there's a lot left, right?
I was going to say, especially after this episode, everyone's going to run down there and grab
Everyone's
it.
on their way.
Yeah. I mean, someone has a part of the set. I can't remember. Some guy has the biggest part of the set.
I want the taxidermy deer. That's what I want.
Oh my god!
That'd be the
In the
best.
game, you can possess the deer when you play as demon and scare the survivors with it.
Oh my god! I gotta play
Good
this
game. Good game, folks. Good game.
Okay.
Remember how you weren't paid to promote the 4Ks? I was not paid to promote the game.
It encapsulates the experience of the Evil Dead, because when you play as the demon, you get that Raimi cam that you get to like go through the woods first person as the Kandarian demon and possess things. Yeah, you can possess people, you can possess trees, and then you can summon creatures. Like it really does feel as much like Evil Dead as a video game could. It's like it's got it all.
And the Raimi cam is truly nauseating, truly an uncomfortable experience that you'll be like fighting through because you really want to mess up the survivors.
I gotta play this.
It's very fun.
And originally the Raimi cam when he was filming was just I think it was just him running through the woods. And
I think they had like sticks, like camera on sticks or something. There's two guys just running.
He rode a bicycle once, I think. Like
at the end shot. At the end shot of Evil Dead 1, he's like riding a bicycle through and then crashes into Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, exactly. So
sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say for anyone ready for Rise, there's a really nice callback to the Raimi cam that opens Rise that I think people think is funny.
Oh, amazing.
Okay, cool. We should probably pitch the movie too. So so Evil Dead Rise is opening in theaters. I believe it's April 21st. Yeah, April 21st. And of course, our sponsors, Deadly Grounds Coffee, big shout out to them. They've got this
huge
brand of coffee, Caffeination Sweet Toffee of Mine, which is the official Black Fawn distro coffee blend. You can order yours at blackfawndistribution.com/store. We do have it back in stock. And again, if you need an extra pick-me-up in the morning, it's got extra caffeine, hence the name. But of course, our friends at Deadly Grounds, longtime sponsors of the show, and obviously good friends. They've got a promotion going on. If you check out their Instagram, head over there and you can check out the Evil Dead Rise promotion that they have. They're having a free giveaway. I'm actually going to pull it up right now and just let everyone know what the deal is. But basically, if you are in the area, if you're around the Curtis or Oshawa area, make sure you head over to the Deadly Grounds Cafe, which is just an absolute amazing place. It's got tons and tons of like memorabilia in there, and just or not memorabilia, but like just horror stuff in general. They've got another store in there. They got coffee cups, everything like that you can go and check out. They are running a promotion, so a giveaway. Check out them on Deadly Grounds Canada. That's their handle on Instagram. They are doing a special advance screen on April 19th. That's why I messed up the dates. At Cineplex Varsity. I guess that's near them in Curtis at 7:45. So check that out. And they will DM some winners. So I won't read the contest details here, but you can check them out on Instagram, and hopefully you get to see it a couple days before everyone else, or a lot of days after Lindsay already saw it. So
don't I literally rearranged my life and flew to Texas to see it early.
There's a reason to do that.
You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. You can
rearrange your life and go to Curtis.
It's a lot easier to go to Curtis.
There will be coffee there too, so you can just stop by.
Coffee even.
Yeah, they're it's a great company, independent Canadian business that have grown from the ground up, and their whole brand is about horror stuff. If you haven't checked them out, please check them out. And listen, they sponsor our regular shows where we have people on and guests on talking about their particular films or projects that they're working on. And if you go to the Deadly Grounds Coffee website, you can actually check out with the code Takeover, and it'll actually get you 13% off. Of course, there's that number again, 13% off. Lucky number 13, 13th annual edition of Shock Stock.
Yeah,
I guess, right? Yeah, who's counting, right? But in either event, listen, before we go, just want to say thanks so much for you guys for joining the panel tonight and making the time. I know everyone's busy. How were the drinks? So was the drink a good idea? The Dead by Dawn drink? Look at that. Finished.
Done.
Just throwing it over to you guys. Let our people know what's up, what you have going on. Lindsay, I'll throw it to you first, just because I feel like Jake's had too much promotional time tonight.
It's just there.
But what are you working on? Obviously, you got a whole bunch of stuff going on. But what do you want to pitch our audience just to tell them to check out?
What am I working on? I'm on the internet at Smash. Okay, this is one of those weird things about me is I never correct people when they say my name wrong because I'm used to people saying it wrong, and it just my last name is actually pronounced Travis, like the guy's name.
My whole life has been a lie.
I know. I'm sorry. I'd like so many of my good friends all know that. And I never say anything because I'm so used to people calling me by the wrong name on purpose as a gag. So then I just like don't notice it. But as I was about to say my handle out loud, I was like, oh wait. Anyway.
That's on you, Kelly. That's
been a lie. My whole life is a lie.
Smash Travis spelled out Smash Traves. That's me on the internet. If you want to see my reviews, most of them are on pajiba.com. That's pajiba.com. I love that you got that pronunciation right. Amazing. And I write lots of places. If and when you see Evil Dead and you want some further reading, because I'm a fan of reading reviews after movies, but totally your prerogative. My review of Evil Dead Rise is on pajiba.com if you want to find it. And that's mostly where you can find me. I'm a few other places. I pop up on IGN. I pop up on Slash Film. Sometimes I'm at Fangoria. But those are the places you can find me. Oh, and also Grim Magazine, which I think Kelly and I have in common. And yeah, that's most of it. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. So Lindsay Traves, like
the guy's name,
like the person.
We'll write that down.
I know. I'm sorry.
I gotta change my whole mindset now.
I know. Sometimes it's Traves, sometimes it's Traves. I'm always just like, whatever. Sometimes it's Trevor. Don't ask. But
I get Kelly McNally all the time. I get it.
Yeah, Kells McNally's. That's the way we're like, what do you want to go by on the show? She's like, Kells McNally's just easier. So, but Jake, throwing it back to you. I know you're a busy guy. I won't keep you much longer. But hey, obviously, Shock Stock's coming up May 3rd to 7th. But the main weekend, if you're coming down to stay at the Ramada, is going to be May 5th, 6th, and 7th. What else do you want to pitch other than that, or you can just talk Shock Stock for a few minutes if you want? Love hearing about it.
I mean, we don't even need to talk about Shock Stock. Just keep loving horror movies, people. Keep keep talking about them online, and the rest will just happen naturally. So if you're listening out there, just keep watching horror movies and having fun.
Cool. Quick question for you. Any plans to bring back any sort of drive-in series, maybe like this summer?
You know what? As soon as the pandemic ended, the drive-ins got super busy and they didn't really want to talk to us as much. But we're thinking of doing, and actually there's been some discussions about doing a Shock Stock series of theatrical screenings throughout the year. So we've got some films. We've talked to some indie guys, some people that we, obviously we couldn't play everything that was sent to us at Shock Stock this year, but there's some people that aren't getting as many opportunities to screen stuff in Canada. And we might present the opportunities to them. So we'll wait and see. There's nothing set in stone, but if that does happen, then there could be more Shock Stock happening throughout the year. Just showing great independent horror films from around the world.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Well, listen, on that note, I'll let you guys all get out of here. But thanks so much for doing the show again. We really do appreciate it. One of our things is we had so much fun doing these hot stoves in the past, just because people would come on the program and not know each other. Like I just assumed that everyone just knew each other. And so it's been a lot of fun just getting, just introducing people to each other too, which I think is kind of all part of our community. And that's sort of like, that's sort of, what we're all about. And that's kind of what keeps us going too. Right. So a couple of quick last minute comments. I try and get as many in as possible. Sorry, we can't get to all the comments all the time. They just come in pretty fast and we're sort of running this and it's live. Okay. Yeah. If it was like edited, I get it, but like it's live. So, I mean, anything can happen, but just a quick shout out from Goister. I'm going to say Goister. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Saying thanks for the show. Hey man, thank you for tuning in. Kevin piping in again. Way to go, everybody. Kevin, sorry I missed your show on Friday. I will come to whenever the next one is, or whenever I can get down there. Kevin actually started Sepultura cover band, which is awesome. Roots,
that's
Bloody
amazing.
Roots. Yeah. He's like, I'm in a cover band. I was like, what cover band? He's like, Sepultura. I was like, what?
Wow.
That's amazing. And just a quick shout out from Rob saying, hail to that lady in the top right corner over there. So I'm guessing, I'm guessing that's you, Kels, right?
Me. Hi, Rob.
Kevin, that's okay, buddy. Thanks, dude. appreciate you letting me off And one last question. This is a great question. We'll
Mm.
end on this, and then we'll get the hell out of here. Please, once we go off the air, guys, just stick around. I just want to catch up and see how we'll just have a little bit of a post-mortem. But these Spincers of Horror, of course. What's your boomstick or weapon of choice to kill a swarm of deadites? Great question, and it's great. Maybe even a video game tie-in too, if you. So yeah,
you know what? If it is the video game tie-in, I'm kind of digging the exploding crossbow. It was a DLC add-on.
Really?
Yeah,
What a hot take.
I know.
Really hot take.
I don't know. What do you want though? It's like
I'm not critical. I'm just like, wow. Okay,
yeah,
no
I know.
one is good with that weapon. Okay,
No.
if you're good with that weapon, like. Forget hail to the deadites. Hail to you. That is unreal. No one is good with that thing.
Controversy.
I'm not saying I'm good with the weapon. I'm saying I enjoy it a lot, but it doesn't really provide results.
Good for you.
Lindsay, okay, well let's I feel like this is like an episode of Crossfire now. That's why we call it the Hotstove from Hell, everyone.
No, that was not facetious. I'm being like, wow, that's great. I think that's interesting. I remember thinking about this when Halloween, whatever the one was, where they were like, where someone had like an iron and it was like, what was your thing that you brought to kill Michael Myers? And I was like, oh no, I don't have any weapons in my house. The things I like keep in my house as a weapon are hockey sticks, but I don't think you're gonna really kill deadites with that. I think I could kill a lot of deadites with a bow and arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Maybe an axe.
Axe would be a good one. Lots of swinging power.
But my weapon in the game
two-handed
is a chainsaw.
axe?
Mm.
Yeah. Which is why I like won't go axe throwing because my ego's too delicate. So like I have this thing where like I have like my athletic ability very low. But my ego and competitive spirit incredibly high. So if there's like an event I can compete in that I might not be great at, I have to like really think about it. Like, do I want to do this? Which is why I haven't been axe throwing yet because I don't think my ego can handle it. But so yeah, I'm saying two-handed axe. I think I could swing an axe.
Nice.
So until you go axe throwing, you are the best axe thrower you know.
Yeah, that's true.
What I'm saying. I watch other people do it, and I'm like, I could do that.
Exactly.
Lindsay,
Like
do
you got
trash.
nothing.
You talk trash and say that you're good about stuff, even though you don't know yet. Like, because I do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, oh yeah, I'm the best. And then,
but
like,
only if I
haven't
know
even
that
done
I never have to put my money where my mouth is. Like if there's any chance I'm going to be tested, I'm not going to take that kind of a gamble because again, very delicate ego. It's not really so much a delicate ego as it is a very high competitive spirit. So like I will like talk trash to your face. I'll make you feel bad about yourself. I'll say like a lot of really unforgivable things. And then I don't want to have to then fail after something like that. You know, no one wants to do that. So yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. You know what? All I heard was perfect shock stock material. So like, they'll fit right in. Trust me. Kels, what are you doing? What are you doing? Weapon of choice with deadites.
I think like my friend Kelly and Ash versus Evil Dead. I'm gonna go with flamethrower. I think that's going to be my go-to. That can I like dual wield flamethrower and katana for like up close? Because I feel like that would be just like game over.
Yeah, sure.
Game over.
In the game, you get a ranged weapon and a melee weapon, so I'm going to allow it.
Well, there you go.
So I've never played the game, but obviously I have to now, so I'll get on that. But I guess if I had, let's say I'm in a real life situation and there's a whole bunch of deadites coming at me, I think I'm going with chainsaw. Yeah, classic. And even though it might get messy, it'll just like I think honestly, it's like if you killed one deadite with a chainsaw, like and anybody else saw you, they would think that you were like the baddest human on the planet. So I think I'd go with that because even in a post-apocalyptic world, you'd still want to carry that on, right, Lindsay?
Yeah,
you gotta have 100%. Also, the thing about chainsaw, like this is where, oh my god. It's like after dark. I need to chill. But it's not like zombies where noise is a factor. Like that's why I'm all like, oh, bow and arrow. Long distance, quiet is usually what I think about because I'm thinking about like actual apocalypse. But I feel like chainsaw, deadites aren't reacting to sound. Deadites are going to find you. You can't hide from them. You might as well make a scene.
True.
So I agree on the
flatter them as much as you can.
I agree.
We've got I'm just going to throw this last comment up and then we'll go. So no more comments, guys. I can't get any more comments. So if I don't get any more comments after this, I'm sorry. I apologize, but we do have to go. But just a question from Rob. I have a question. He said, what are you guys expecting from Evil Dead Rise? Kelly, don't answer. We need content.
This is my Dungeon of Deadly Delights co-host. So I can't answer because we're going to be talking about
Okay, so
at our next episode.
Kelly won't answer. Kelly's omitted from this.
I won't answer.
And Well, Lindsay,
Yeah,
you've
I
already
guess
seen it.
Lindsay's
So
seen
you've already
it. She
seen it.
can't.
so Jake, what are you expecting? And I'll go last, and then we'll sign off.
Well, you know what, and one thing that, like, you know, and I mentioned earlier, I got 3 kids, so I, as a parent, seeing kids in the trailer for Evil Dead Rise, like, already affects me. I hadn't, and a quick little bit of an anecdote is seeing Pet Sematary as a kid. You know, I laughed with my buddies. You know what I mean? Like, and that movie that's a hard watch movie. You know what I mean? Pet Sematary, the original Pet Sematary, it's a horrifying film.
Yeah,
and
really
watching the remake in the theater, and you know, it took some twists, and it had some moments that were unexpected. But like, anything that happened with the kids from a parent's perspective, like, affected me deeply, and I got emotional in the theater. Like, it was crazy. And so seeing that, and just knowing that it's an Evil Dead film, because you know what happens in an Evil Dead film, and knowing that there's kids in that situation is just like, it's harrowing for me. It's like, oh my God, like, this is going to hit me harder than any Evil Dead movie has ever hit me, just from that, like, specific perspective of a parent. And I think that, you know, that's partially what they're going for, is they want that to be there, and put yourself in that situation. But like, yeah, I'm expecting there to be some really, like, I'm going to be choking a little bit throughout the movie, just being like, oh no, I can't.
I really like, we were talking about just before we jumped on the air. I really like the scene in the trailer where she's making breakfast for everyone. Just because it's like you're just saying, it's such a, like, from my perspective, it's like, you know, leaning into like the motherly kind of thing, where like, I wonder how many of those tropes they're going to play with, which is very, very interesting to me, because I think that in much the same way you were saying that about kids and stuff, right, Jake, is like, it's like just being it unnerving. I think my expectation from the film is that, and I think I'm going to get this, as far as what Lindsay shared with us on the panel tonight, is that just a different take, like a different film that's still in the conversation, that isn't something so similar that you can say, well, you know, it's just another sequel, but something that's just sort of in the mix, where, you know, when we do rank these again or whatever, then maybe things fall in a different manner, just because of how the film kind of delivers. That's hopefully what I'm going to get. Like, I'm pumped to go and see it, but also like, just seeing like a horror flick in a theater with a bunch of people is like, especially a good one. Like, nothing beats it, and people jumping around. And like, one of the things that makes me laugh every time I go to the theaters, when I go to a scary movie and like something happens, because I know it's going to happen, because I've seen so many horror movies, and then the people in front of you jump, and you're like, ha, 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 ha. And then something happens and it makes you jump, and then you're like, God damn it.
You got me.
And I can't remember what was the movie. I think it was It. I think it was the first It. The scene where like he comes out of the screen. It's like the perfect amount of time. It's the perfect amount of time where you're like, nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to happen. Okay. Nothing. And then it happens. And I was just like, I fucking jumped out of my seat. I must've jumped six inches out of my seat. And I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, I was so like, and I was laughing and scared and like embarrassed all at the same time. Right. It's like the burly bearded guy, and like all these kids are so anyway, but listen, on that note, thanks everyone again for tuning in. Thanks to our audience out there for tuning into our Hotstove from Hell episode on the Evil Dead franchise. Of course, big thanks to my guests tonight, Lindsay Traves from the internet and all horror sites imaginable, Jake Grimb, junior scumbag up there in London, Ontario, down there in London, Ontario.
Thank you.
But,
hey, while we're correcting names, it's not Grimbo, it's Grimbro, because it's short for Grim Brother. It's
but isn't that on your thing?
No, it's never been on my thing.
It's never been on your thing? I thought it was always Grimbo.
There's an R in there, but you know
what are we doing?
It's fine. It's okay. It's the same thing, where it's been like that for so long that I just don't correct people. But
I don't.
While we're in the
we have this in common. We have this in common.
We're connected.
Benner, we
even know
have
that.
dropped the ball on this today, Benner.
Yeah, thanks for telling our listening audience on the repeats that. I mean, they never would have known that had you not said it. So listen, I'll have to. I thought that too. I don't know why I didn't notice that. Anyway,
okay.
Listen, it's our second show back. All right, we're still working at the kinks here.
I love it.
And
I love
we were on a short turnaround week, but the reason we did it is because we really want to commit to 2 shows a month, which we've actually now accomplished. We've got another show coming up in early May, so please keep an eye out for that. But of course, big thanks to our guests, Jake Grimb, and Lindsay Traves. For anybody else who's looking to come on and get their name mispronounced, give us a shout out at Takeover at blackfawndistribution.com. We'd love to have you on a guest and help you promote what you're doing out there in the world of horror or the world of film. Of course, big shout out to my thanks to my co-host. I can't remember, what's your co-host name tonight?
Klaatu Verada, co-host.
Okay, absolutely. Kelly McNeely, thanks again for joining me on this weird, strange, and grammatically incorrect journey. And of course, I'm your host, Benner from Black Fawn Distro. Hail to the host, baby. That's my name tonight.
You're welcome.
Just a little Army of Darkness reference for everyone out there. Listen, we're broadcasting live to Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. And of course, rebroadcasting to all of the major streaming platforms, including Spotify and Apple. Again, thanks to our sponsors, Deadly Grounds Coffee, Twisted Teas, and of course, Wellington Brewery's Helles Lager. And hey, listen, here's our sign off. We'll see you on the next episode of Takeover Tuesday. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next time. And that does it for another episode of Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please remember to like, follow, share, and subscribe, and help us spread the word about the program and our incredible guests. If you're interested in grabbing some more information about Black Fawn Distribution or want to check out our film titles and merchandise, you can find us online at blackfawndistribution.com. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Wellington Brewery's Helles Lager, Deadly Grounds Coffee, Twisted Teas, and of course, Black Fawn Distribution. Just a reminder, you can always catch Black Fawn Distro's Takeover Tuesday live on Facebook, YouTube, and our other social media platforms. Or pick up one of our retransmissions on any of the major streaming platforms. Until next time, I'm your host Benner from Black Fawn Distro, and we'll see you soon.